We're live on the pre-show, everybody. It is our N10-007 Network Plus study group today. This is the pre-show, about 10 minutes before we get started. So if you're watching this on the replay, you can jump ahead 10 minutes or look at the timestamps in the YouTube video description. You can jump wherever you'd like. Jump around. Hello, chat room. Hello, everybody. Let's check recordings. We are recording with our Cylons down here. We're recording up here. Everything looks like it's working. So there we go. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Welcome aboard. If you're watching this on a replay, you can follow along with us. We'll give you all the instructions on what we're doing if you're here live once we get started. We got about 9 minutes to go. The UK is here. England is here, and the UK is here. Both of them. Thank you for being here. We've got France is here. So Europe's checking in. South Carolina's checking in, which is like France. No, it's not like France. It's like barbecue. It's like the best barbecue ever. Should you go directly to Security Plus? If that's what you would like to do for a living, why not? Why mess around? But there may be steps you have to go through before you get there. Depends on your particular area. If you're in the DC area, yeah, probably pretty secure in getting that Security Plus. Other places, it just depends. There's Iraq, South Africa, and Portugal. Key West, how'd you guys make out? Saw it came through there. It's kind of heading my direction. It's been raining a bit. Egypt, welcome. Pennsylvania, hello. Northern Virginia, welcome. I saw it went right through there. There's Eastern North Carolina, welcome. Is the Google certification worth it? I don't know. It's the value of a certification is what you plan on doing with it. Are you going to learn enough that's going to help you through your career? Is an employer asking for it? There's so many things that could be a valuable piece. Yeah, 501 is a big exam. That's Security Plus. 601, 30% larger. 30% larger, the 601. I don't know what they were thinking, but they were wanting to give you everything. It is a monster. So take that 501 if you can. Lock it in. Hello, Tampa and Costa Rica and Florida and Scala and Italy and New Jersey, and India and Morocco. Welcome. So good to have you here. 7-second video has been amazing. Good. Glad you like it. Do I talk with Mike Myers? No, we don't really talk or anything. No. I mean, we've met. We've been at conferences together. There's a picture somewhere of us together prior to my beard. So this was a while back. We were at a conference together. I don't usually go out. I'm usually here. So I don't usually see many people. I see you. I talk to you. I talk to the internet. Are there topics on the 601 you should learn if you plan to take the 501? Not really. No. No. CompTIA thinks yes. Now that I've gone all the way through it, yes, there's some things that might be worth looking at once you get your 501 under your belt and take the exam and pass it. You're welcome to go back through there and see, but 50% of the exam is new. So that's just how it works. Yeah, I kind of stuck a little bit of Scotland in there at the end of my videos. I love Scotland, and I was there not this past summer, but the summer before. Just had an amazing time. I've been there before on business in the past. I was there for a 2-week period just before Christmas. And boy, Edinburgh is just amazing before Christmas. It's just magical. Just love it. The people are lovely. The place is lovely. It's my people. So that's how it works. Does the 601 go live tomorrow? I think it does, doesn't it? Not my content, but the exam will be available. I would highly recommend you take the 501 exam until July 31st when it goes away, if at all possible. Let's make it cooler in here. It's warm in here. If at all possible, please take that 501 exam. You will do yourself quite the service by doing that. Okay, that's done. Yeah, we want to do other parts of Scotland. We want to go way north in Scotland. My better half, my wife, her ancestors are from the Orkneys. So we would love to get up there into the middle of nowhere, just soak it in and hang out. It's one of those things. Plus, maybe I can go go the other side and see some of the scotch making. A trip to Lagavulin would be an amazing thing. It's one's on the checklist. It's on the list of many things that I have. Gotta find myself back up there. What's making a noise in here? I think it's my ears. I think my ears are the problem. We've got 4.5 minutes to go before we get started, everybody. Hi, Chicago, Cincinnati, St. Vincent, South Africa. Welcome, Chicago. Thanks so much. The next step after Security Plus for someone interested in cybersecurity, it kind of depends. It depends on the part of where you are and what employers are asking for. Some employers would like you to move up to something like the CISSP. Other employers would like you to get some training that's maybe specific to a technology, like a Palo Alto Network certification, a Checkpoint certification, those types. And of course, there's all these cloud security things you need to know these days. So there's some of that. Tried to purchase my notes for the A+ exams, but it didn't work. I'm so sorry. You should find something that would allow it to work for you. There's got to be a piece of plastic somewhere. Or you can use Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash as well. Those work, or PayPal. So you can buy them in many different ways. The free resources are already on the website. You can watch every video online for free. Everything. Yeah, I'll have to wait until all of this you can't travel and talk to people kind of thing works out. That will be, that's on my list though. There's lots of stuff. I got stuff going on though. You know, I'm busy finishing up Security Plus and getting all that videos done and blah, blah, blah. There's plenty of that. Is it true Cisco offers free training on their equipment? Cisco does not offer any free training. Let me be clear. Nobody offers free training, period. But Cisco does have some free tools that you can use for training. Look for Packet Tracer. Packet Tracer is their free emulation tool that works, feels, looks, and acts like real Cisco products. It's kind of nice. It's not truly their product. It's an emulated version of it. It's not a virtualized version of it, but it kind of feels like a virtualized version. They do have other products that really do virtualize it. But the Packet Tracer's free. So I love free. And why wouldn't you use that? Now, that's a little overboard. If you're trying to do Network Plus, you don't need Packet Tracer. But if you're doing Cisco training, it's a must-have. Must-have, must-have. A lot of people trying to figure out, should I buy real equipment? Should I get Packet Tracer? Packet Tracer is a great place to start. It's free. Go through it. You know, after that point, if you feel like you need real equipment, then maybe you can make an investment. I like Packet Tracer because I can build an entire network in seconds, connect it all together, and then if I want to change something, I just change it all around, which is amazing. In seconds. It's, you don't have to go to the rack and unplug things and plug them back in. And did I plug it in nice? It's, you know, the idea of having real equipment is good if you've never touched real equipment, I guess. But touching real equipment is plugging in the power cable and plugging in the Ethernet connection. And that's kind of it. There's your real world enterprise network management of the day is, you know, unplug this. It's really knowing what to plug in and where. That's the key. The rest of it is, of course, doing the configurations. That's the hard part. The design is the hard part. The configurations is the hard part. Knowing what to plug in and where is kind of easy, relatively speaking. So we got a minute to go. 1 minute to go. Let's get this thing going. We got a green light? Yes, we do. Nice. That looks good. That looks good. So those 4 lines, those 4 windows, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are my 4 cameras. So you can kind of see me right here. Hi, everybody. Hi. That's the ones we will be going with. And all 4 of them look like they are ready to go. So we're in good shape there. What about Linux Plus? No Linux Plus at the moment, but I've got it in my head that I need to get some Linux Plus going there. So that will be something that would have to be in the future. But it is on my list. I just have a really long list. It's kind of the way it goes sometimes. Let's see. A video on my setup would be nice. In the meantime, you can find everything about what I got in front of me at professormesser.com/studio. Let's do a live stream, everybody. 12 o'clock straight up for me. Let's go. And then we can talk about what's happening in my world after we're done with this first hour. We get into the after show. And here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the November 2020 Professor Messer Network Plus Study Group. This is our N10-007 Network Plus Study Group. It's our study group that we, for this first hour, I'll ask you questions that come directly from the Network Plus exam, and then you answer these questions that come directly from the Network Plus exam. So I've got all new questions for you this month. We'll go through all of these in just a moment. The way, if you're watching this live, that you can participate is to go to professormesser.com/QA. That's what you want to pop open a new browser window and go to professormesser.com/QA. That will present you with a question that is waiting for you right now. I will go through that in just a moment. There's also a mobile app that you can get for this, because you should always have a mobile app, I guess. The mobile app is the Socrative student app. The service we use is called Socrative, and the app that you would use is the student part of that app. Don't get the teacher app. That's the one for me. Get the Socrative student app. It will ask you for a room name. That room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. Make sure you spell it correctly so that you will be able to answer the question. And the question, if you do all of that right, or one of those things correctly at least, you will see a question waiting for you that asks, a network administrator would like to protect all traffic sent between a management console and the core switches. Which of the following would be the best choice? Would it be SMTPS, SSH, SFTP, SSL, or SNMPv3? Now, if you think you know the answer, do not answer in the chat room. That's our standing rule. You instead want to go to this link, professormesser.com/QA. This is our rewind question. It's a question from last month. It's the only time you're going to see an old question on our live stream. So we will come back to that question in just a moment. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here. Of course, we have all of our Network Plus videos available for you to watch on our website at professormesser.com. We have everything can be watched for free, no registration. It's not behind a paywall. I don't ask you for an email address or anything. It's professormesser.com/YouTube. If you want to just grab it directly off of YouTube, they're all sitting there. You can go through the entire playlist right there on the YouTube. If you go to professormesser.com/YouTube, you'll find them all so much easier. There's also a weekly pop quiz question you can get on professormesser.com/Twitter. Or if you'd like to get a pretty picture with it, professormesser.com/Instagram. All of those, you can find whatever's going on. If you ever want to find me, just go to professormesser.com/ the name of the thing you would like to find me on. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. It's a very common thing to be able to do that. So we will figure out the details of all of those things. If you are here, then you're probably studying for the N10-007 exam. That is the latest version of the Network Plus exam. It was released on March the 1st of 2018. The estimated retirement date for this exam is going to be somewhere probably in the first calendar quarter of 2022. They've already announced that it will be released later in 2021. So the point of this is, if you are right now sitting down and ready to take this exam here in November of 2020, you have plenty of time to study for this. So a lot to go through. The exam itself is 90 minutes long. You can get a maximum of 90 questions. You might get fewer than 90 questions, or you might get as many as 90 questions. The score that you need to make on a scale of 100 to 900 is a score of 720. 720 is the score you need. It's a combination of multiple choice questions and performance-based questions. We will do a performance-based question as our first new question of the month, so stick around for that. All of my videos are available to watch online, but if you wanted to have my course notes, my exam hacks ebook, you wanted to download all my videos, you want them all in MP3 format, I put everything available on my site into my Network Plus Success Bundle. You can find that at professormesser.com/netsuccess. And I'll show you more information, including how you can get priority access, Q&A to these monthly study groups, and so much more. There's also a replay of this study group available in podcast form at professormesser.com/podcast. You'll be able to pop open your podcast listening program and have it just downloaded automatically whenever I post it. So that's kind of nice to have that there. There's also a video version of this replay available immediately afterwards. As soon as I hit the stop button, YouTube cranks away, and then a few minutes later makes it available to you if all things go well. About a day later, My marketing manager, Lori, goes back through this. Hi, Lori. Chat room, say hi to Lori. She's having to watch this all over again on the replay, get all the timestamps, put the timestamps in the video description, and save all of that. So she does an amazing service for all of us. And that means that you can go back to any of my study groups and click on any of these timestamps and go directly to exactly that part that you are looking for. It might speed things up if you're studying just a little bit to have those timestamps available to you. It's kind of a nice feature in YouTube. You'll notice we'll even put it into the player. If you're on a desktop, they show in the player where each of the breaks are because it follows the timestamps that she puts in there. It's kind of nice to have. Let's talk about that question from earlier. A network administrator would like to protect all traffic sent between a management console and the core switches. Which of the following would be the best choice? Now, you've got a few options here. In fact, some of them I would almost accept multiple answers on this one. But let's see how you did with this one. The possible answers were SMTPS, SSH, SFTP, SSL, and SNMP-v3. Lots to choose from there. Let's see how you chose. The option you chose, 45% of you said SNMP-v3 and 32% of you said SSH. I think I would take either one of those, although I was looking for a particular answer. I was not looking for SMTPS. I was not looking for SFTP. I was not looking for SSL. And let's talk about these protocols. We're talking about secure protocols. The question is talking about protecting traffic. Anytime you see someone wanting to have protection of traffic, protection of data, they're really talking about encryption. That's the best way to protect data after all. SSH is a great way to protect data through a console connection. That's usually something you would do from your desk or from your mobile device so that you could securely go to a command prompt of a remote device like a switch, router, firewall, or other infrastructure device. Not exactly what I was shooting for this question, but I think I will accept that as an answer because the question is vague enough the way I wrote it that it could really be either one of those. So I'll accept SSH for something like this. It would not be SFTP, which is a file transfer protocol. We're not transferring files. We're gathering information from this device. We're protecting all traffic sent between a management console and the core switches. And when you see management console, you're really thinking about SNMP, the Simple Network Management Protocol. This is a very common way to have a management workstation query devices and gather information about how well they are performing. That is really the answer I was looking for, SNMP-v3. It's a very common way to do that. Would not be SSL. These management devices commonly do not use SSL to be able to do that, although they can. They don't commonly do. It is a common way to, of course, encrypt traffic, but it implies there's a web server somewhere, and these switches and routers and other devices you're using don't commonly have a web server in them. That's not always true, but commonly they do not. IPsec was not one of the answers, but that is a common way to set up a connection between machines or endpoints and have all of that traffic protected. You should know all of those secure protocols for your Network Plus exam. And you can, of course, see the answers that you wrote here. SNMP-v3 was the one I was looking for. The 44% of you that chose E got that right. I think I'll accept SSH, though, because management consoles are a common place to launch an SSH terminal session if you have to. 33% of you chose that, so let's bundle that in. Let's say, yes, I will accept that as a good answer. 14% of you said SSL, not commonly used. SFTP, 3% of you. We didn't talk about SMTPS, the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol Secure. We're not transferring mail between our management station and these devices. Only 5% of you chose that one anyway. The best options here, answer E, SNMP-v3, and answer B, SSH. Hopefully those are some things you remember from last month. That is our last old question of the month. Let's move ahead into a performance-based question. As I mentioned earlier, you will get different kinds of questions on your exam. You will get multiple choice-based questions, like the one we just did. It was a question, and there were multiple choices you could have selected. So you've got, at least in this one, a 20% chance of getting it right, even if you guessed. So there's at least a chance of you getting these right. But you will get a handful of questions at the very beginning of the exam. Could be 5, could be fewer or more than that, but about a handful of these that will not be multiple choice. They will be what they call performance-based questions. Performance-based questions might be a fill in the blank. They might put you in a command prompt and ask you to perform a function. That might be a matching question. It might be one where you have to put things in order from highest to lowest or fastest to slowest. It might be a drag and drop question. There's different types of scenarios, but they're all asking you about information that comes directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. So you should have an idea of the content they're asking about. They're just asking you in a different way. There's some strategies we can talk about referring to these types of questions, but the performance-based question I have for you today is one that you can do at your computer right now to see if you get it right. So let's do our performance-based question of the day. This is a command prompt question, which asks you, the www.professormesser.com server can be reached from multiple IP addresses. Display all of those IP addresses with a single command. I know you can't really see it on the screen because my big head is there, but that's what that says. The www.professormesser.com server can be reached from multiple IP addresses. Display all of those IP addresses with a single command. Now, you do not want to type this in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA. There are actually two answers that I would accept here. You're welcome to put either one of them or both, I guess, for this. So see what you can do. Some of you are already putting in some answers, trying some things out, typing some things in to figure this out. A lot of you, I think, know this one. Some of you probably done this one before, and you may not even realize that the professormesser.com web server can be reached from multiple IP addresses. That's by design to have that. Do the study exams include the PBQ and the content that's purchasable from my site? I don't have practice exams for Network Plus at the moment, I'm afraid. But all the others I do, and they do include performance-based questions. But I don't have one for Network Plus yet. It is a top request and is on my list to absolutely make one of those available. But it's not something that is currently available. See if you can type in what this happens to be. Some of you are typing these in trying to figure out, is it this? Is it that? Is it a different thing? The question talks about the www.professormesser.com server can be reached from multiple IP addresses. Display all of those IP addresses with a single command. Some of you are giving me one that would display one of those IP addresses with a single command, but I'm looking for one command that will show me all of them. How would I do that? How does that work exactly? We will find out here in just a moment. And notice I'm putting you at a command prompt, and it shows a Windows command prompt, but there really are two different commands here that you could use, although one of them would require you to have already installed a particular utility. So we can talk about that as well to figure out all of this. See if you happen to know what this happens to be. All of these names of commands are probably going through your head and trying to figure out, which is that? What is this? What is that one we should do? So let's see if we can figure this out. I'm going to, I did give you a little bit of a hint on this. So we're going to pop open a command prompt, and I'm gonna show you some of this to have this. Let's try it. I'm in a situation where I've configured my web server. Can I make this bigger by going like this? Yes, I can. So we make it really big on the screen so you can really see what's going on here. So the command I am looking for, if you're in Windows, is, and I happen to be on Mac OS, but it's the same command in Windows or Mac OS, NSLOOKUP. NSLOOKUP was the command I was looking for. And the NSLOOKUP command is one where it's going to ask you or prompt you for some type of input. So in our particular case, I want to do a name server lookup of www.professormesser.com. And it comes back and gives me all of the different addresses that it happens to know for that. Now, in my particular case, I'm going to bring up another view of this on my dig that I have there. And you will have different IP addresses when you query this. Some of these are lots of numbers. There's lots of numbers that are going to come up from this to query all of these. So I wanted to give you both. Either one of those would be good to use, by the way. NSLOOKUP, and that's why I told you I would take either NSLOOKUP or dig. But I showed you a Windows command prompt. The dig utility is one that you would need to install to have available in Windows. It's not there by default. So one of the things that you would probably want to do is go to the configuration for In fact, I have a video on this. Go to professormesser.com/YouTube, and I have a video on how to install Dig in Windows. Takes you right through the process so that Dig is there. I find Dig to be a little bit more useful and available to have that there. Your IP addresses are going to be different than my IP addresses, though. So don't worry that you're getting a completely different set of addresses on your side. That's by design. You're going to get a completely different group of IP addresses than what I have. So that's one where, depending on where you are in the world, you will be connecting to a particular Cloudflare configuration, and that Cloudflare configuration is going to show you different things depending on where you happen to be. So if you are in the UK, you're going to get different IP addresses than I got on mine. So if you answered either NSLookup and then www.professormesser.com or dig.www.professormesser.com, either of those are acceptable and a great way to query the web server and get information. There's so many other options there that you can work through for NSLookup and Dig. Very powerful programs to give you a lot of information. You definitely need to know that for your Network Plus. Also need to know it for Security Plus. There's some great security information you can gather from NSLookup and from Dig. So both of those would be good to query and be able to look at. So hopefully that's a command prompt that you were familiar with. A lot of you gave me this. Now, a lot of you gave me the ping command. You did a ping and then the www.professormesser.com, which behind the scenes, of course, does a name server query to find the IP address. It returns an IP address to you, and then it pings, but it only will ping one of the IP addresses. Only one of those is going to be accepted by you and returned and used as the IP address and stuck in the cache. So ping would not be a good answer for this. A single command, an NSLookup or Dig is the only way to do this because I wanted all of the IP addresses associated with my web server. Can't use ping, can't use traceroute, can't use ipconfig. Ipconfig would show me my IP address on my workstation, not the IP addresses that are known to be www.professormesser.com. So that is why ipconfig won't work, ping won't work, ARP won't work. ARP would only show me one of the IP addresses associated with that particular MAC address. It doesn't even show name service information, so ARP wouldn't be correct either. Those are probably the most popular answers I got, but I think most of you did pretty well with that one. That was your performance-based question. You can always go back to the previous 12 months of study groups. I've got a new performance-based question every time. It's a great reason to go back and watch some of the replays. Traceroute only shows you one IP address as the professormesser.com. Same reason that we would not use ping. It does not show you every. What if I had 10 IP addresses associated with my web server? Traceroute's only going to show you one of them. Maybe it'll show you 3 if it does it 3 times, which is the default for traceroute. But it doesn't necessarily have to. It might show you the same one every time to have that. The answer was NSLookup and then www.professormesser.com or Dig. I'll take either one of those, professormesser.com. Let's do a multiple choice-based question. We're going to shift gears after showing you. There's the answer. I should have just had that up on the screen. You would have been able to see it. There's my Dig. Are you digging it? It's right there on myprofessormesser.com in Windows. A Dig in Windows. To have that there. Nmap would not work either. The only thing it's going to tell you, every IP address associated with that's going to be NSLookup. So that's the one to do. That's what you need to know is that particular command. Make sure you're familiar with both of those. You could be asked about either one of those that come directly from the exam objectives. Make sure you're familiar. Let's do another question. I've got more multiple choice-based questions here. Let's do this one, which asks, a network administrator is troubleshooting an issue with a blocked port number on a firewall. Which of the following OSI layers would be most associated with this issue? And it's OSI 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. Which layer? There's 7 layers in the OSI model. A network administrator is troubleshooting an issue with a blocked port number on a firewall. Which of the following OSI layers would be most associated with this issue? Is it layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 5, layer 6, or layer 7? Layer 8 is not on this list. Layer 8, not exactly in the model, but we all know it exists. We also I want to let you know, don't put the answer in the chat room. Go to professormesser.com/QA. That's the link on your screen right there in green. Go to that link and you'll be able to put in what you think the right layer happens to be. You don't want to put anything in the chat room. You want to lock it in yourself. Now, if you're watching this on a replay, that link is not going to be available to you, but you can still follow along with what we're doing here. Lock it in your brain or write it down or put it in a window, type it in. You can remember what you chose. Layers 1 through 7. Layer 8, the mythical layer 8 is the political layer or the management layer or the layer outside the scope of technology. It's the layer that always seems to mess things up. The technology is working great, and then layer 8 comes along and messes everything up. So we've all had that happen. That's what layer 8 is. It's always something. Now, if you want to be a really good technologist, you should become very good at layer 8. A lot of people fight layer 8. They think that layer 8 is in their way. But the best technologists I know are ones that have been able to have all of the layers coexist. It's always going to be there, so I'll know what you're fighting. It's always going to exist, so stop fighting it. Be able to work through it to have that. Will there be a new Network Plus exam? There will be in about I have some dates, but we're talking about into next year before you will ever see those to be able to have that there. So let's see how you did with this question. A network administrator is troubleshooting an issue with a blocked port number on a firewall. Which of the following OSI layers would be most associated with this issue? And there's layers 1 through 7. Which ones did everybody choose? Oh, we're a little torn. Almost a tie exactly for first place between layer 3 and layer 4. 35% and 35% exactly. How you like that? That's what I wanted to see. Thank you so much. And then a tie, almost a three-way tie for second between layer 2, layer 5, and layer 7. Layer 6 only got 4%. Layer 1 only got 1%. How sad to have that there. The answer when we're talking about, in this question, a blocked port number. Port numbers is what we were talking about. And anytime you're talking about a port number, then you're talking about TCP or UDP. And if you're talking about TCP or UDP, then you are talking about layer 4, the transport layer. This is the layer that's going to take all this information, put it into boxes, send it across the network, and then put it back together again on the other side. At least from a TCP perspective, that's what it does. UDP doesn't do any fancy things like that. It doesn't keep track of what's first and what's last. Doesn't allow you to put things back together. It just sends them, and however they come out on the other side is what's going to happen. TCP, though, is a little more structured. It's in sequence numbers. It can put everything back together into the right way on the other side to have all of those. So absolutely something you can look at. Layer 4, the transport layer, is what we're looking at for this particular question. If you are someone who is working through this layer 4 issue, if you're working through an issue that's a port number that's being blocked, if somebody's trying to determine what the right port number would be to put into a firewall, if somebody's configuring a server and they want to know what port number they should put in the server for the service, they're asking a layer 4 question. They're asking about transport layer. They're asking about layer 4 on the list right there between network and session. So that is the answer to this question as well. Anytime that you were talking about a port number, you are talking about layer 4. So 35% of you got that one right. Now, why wouldn't it be layer 3? 35% of you also chose layer 3. That's the one that a lot of people said. Well, layer 3 would be associated with an IP address. If we're talking about an IP address problem, a subnet mask issue, a default gateway problem, or anything relating to an IP address, that's a layer 3 issue. In this particular case, we're talking about a port number. So a port number is very specific to layer 4. It would not be layer 7 because we weren't talking about allowing or having an issue with an application. If we were having an issue with somebody posting to Twitter, we were having a problem with somebody accessing Google Mail, that would be a layer 7 problem. But whenever you have a problem relating to port numbers or you're referring to something associated with port numbers, you're talking about layer 4. That is the OSI layer that would be most associated with this issue. The CompTIA exam loves to put best, most, first in these questions, and you should absolutely know what the most, the best, or the first is going to be, because there may be multiple answers in a list that might be technically correct, but only one is going to be most correct. So you really do have to know nuances and understand all of those to really know where you're going to go with that. Let's do another question. I think we did pretty well there. Our port number question between layer 3 and 4. Hopefully you were able to make that determination, though, the differences. Maybe if we could have everybody who got layer 3 and get them into layer 4, there's 70% of you would have gotten that one right. So in a way, that's good, though. Whenever you get a question wrong and you go through the process of learning why you got it wrong, that's an opportunity that you've won. That's a great opportunity to do something better. So that's one that might help for something like this. Let's do another question. I've got another question here waiting for you. And this next one asks, an IPS has reported that the traffic levels of an internet link have increased compared to normal traffic patterns. What type of identification was used for this alert? Was it anomaly-based, heuristics, simulation, signature-based, or behavior-based? An IPS has reported that the traffic levels of an internet link have increased compared to normal traffic patterns. What type of identification was used for this alert? Was it anomaly-based, heuristics, simulation, signature-based, or behavior-based? You think you know the answer? Don't answer in the chat room. You want to go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer to be able to have that there. This is one that is an important consideration as well. IPS is a term you should know. So already it's kind of a two-step question. You have to do the IPS part of this, 2 steps to be able to get there. And for that IPS question, you have to know what IPS uses to identify something. So hopefully you're able to step through what this happens to be. This is a question. It seems like it should be a Security Plus question. This is a Network Plus question. It comes directly from the Network Plus exam objectives. Like all the other questions in here, they all come directly from the Network Plus exam objectives. And you'll notice when we go to the explanation slide, there's always a objective number and the name of the video where you can find the topic. So if you're trying to figure out in the list, where did this come from? Well, it tells you right there. So you'll be able to find this for those things. Do they ask IPS questions in the Network Plus exam? Yes, they do. You can rewind 30 seconds and you'll hear all about it. Very useful to know these things. Let's see how you did. A lot of you slowly locking in your question with this one. Stop Googling. Do not Google. You want to go and figure this one out on your own. It's much more rewarding when you do that anyway. And this is one, well, the real question, finally in the chat room, somebody asking, well, what's an IPS? Exactly. You have to know. In fact, this is very similar questions on the exam, which really talk about what topic is part of the question that you have to know if you plan on answering the rest of the question properly. So make sure you're familiar with that. Please know hints or answers in the chat room. We'll figure out the details of this as we go along because people are still answering this question. Let's see how we did with this one. An IPS has reported that traffic levels of an internet link have increased compared to normal traffic patterns. You have what type of identification was used for this alert. You have 5 different options available on this: anomaly-based, heuristics, simulation, signature-based, or behavior-based. You can, of course, see that 43% of you say anomaly-based, 40% of you say behavior-based, kind of a mix between those two. The rest are single digits. So we have 9% that said heuristics, 7% that said signature-based, and 0% said simulation. And I made up simulation because IPSs do not use simulations to be able to make that happen. So we know that it wasn't that either with either one of those. So we've got kind of a very strong tie for first and second to have both of these. Let's step through what these particular kinds of identification technologies might be. This is the key for an IPS, by the way. IPS is an intrusion prevention system. This is a technology that if you're ever working through trying to stop a certain kind of known vulnerability, or in some cases unknown vulnerability, this is what you would use as an IPS. These used to be separate devices, and I guess you can still find some out there. There's certainly some you can download from the internet, like Snort is one that you can put as a separate device on your network. Generally these days, an IPS is a technology that has now been built into a next-generation firewall. So that's where you would find IPS functionality. Works the same as a standalone IPS, just built into the firewall that you already have. But there are different ways to identify a known vulnerability. If you have noticed, by the way, The Microsoft and other manufacturers create patches every month. They put them onto your computer. Those patches are there to block vulnerabilities that are in your operating system. So, of course, the IPS manufacturers, the next generation firewall manufacturers, will create ways to block traffic that might come in to take advantage of those vulnerabilities. But how does it know that that kind of network traffic is bad network traffic? That's what IPS is really doing, is separating out good network traffic from bad network traffic. One common way to do this, and probably the most common way to do this, is with a signature. A signature is with something that is a well-known set of data coming through. And if we happen to see this set of data coming through, we will block this traffic. For example, the signature that is up on my screen is a signature for Configure. I think this is the signature from Snort that I grabbed. So if a set of network traffic comes through that matches this hexadecimal signature, the IPS says, wait a second, I know this is bad. Clearly, this is not something that should be on my network. I'm going to drop it. So that's what that particular feature is. So it's a perfect match to be able to do that. But of course, the bad guys are trying to get around these signatures. They're trying to attack your network and get through the IPS. So they're going to use other methods, which means we have to use other methods to be able to identify bad traffic. One of them is anomaly-based, where we're building a baseline of what is normal. Normal traffic patterns, normal traffic types, normal traffic utilizations. And if we observe that the traffic deviates from what is normal, that is an anomaly. That's really in the name, the definition of the anomaly, something anomalous, something that is different than the norm. So if we're getting into an anomaly-based detection technology, the IPS knows that during the day, normally we have a certain type of network traffic and a certain type of utilization. If suddenly the utilization spikes, the network traffic changes dramatically, it might decide this is not good. I'm going to start blocking some of this. So that's one that is an anomaly-based identification technology. There's also behavior-based. If somebody tries to perform a particular thing on the network, somebody's trying to brute force a password, that is a type of behavior that could be considered bad, and it would block that. It's a different password they're trying every time. It's a different username they're trying every time. But the pattern of what they are doing, the behavior that they are exhibiting is bad behavior. These are bad behavior from bad people. So it will identify the bad behavior without a signature, without anomaly, just knows that's bad. If somebody keeps trying and it's a bad password, we're going to stop that traffic from coming through. And there's also heuristics, where we use artificial intelligence to identify. So heuristics goes even deeper. It's not a simple, did things change versus the norm? Heuristics doesn't care what the norm is. Heuristics is looking for traffic patterns and things in the way that people are communicating that might make them believe that what they are doing is bad. And there's so many different variables associated with that, but effectively artificial intelligence is what we're using to make that happen. Those four things are the four major ways that an intrusion prevention system is going to either allow or block traffic coming in through your network. This is very, very common to be able to do this. And the person who's managing the IPS gets to decide what they do with traffic that is identified this way. They may decide, block everything that matches a signature, but give me an alert if it's an anomaly or behavior-based or heuristics. Or they may have a much tighter security profile and say, I really want to block everything. If anomaly-based fires, if behavior-based fires, if heuristics fires, or if signatures fires, block it all. I'll deal with the fallout later, but I'm going to lean on the side of blocking everything that I think might be an issue on my particular network. You're the administrator of the security system. You get to control all of those types of things. That's the benefit of the IPS. So those of you that answered anomaly-based, that is the correct answer for this one. All we know is that the traffic levels of an internet link have increased compared to normal traffic patterns. That's an anomaly. Anomaly is comparing the past with present and trying to figure out, is it something different than what I'm accustomed to seeing? That would be an anomaly to have those things there. We also have the behavior-based would not be the right answer. Behavior-based would be somebody is performing bad behavior. It would be something bad like a brute force attack or somebody trying to traverse the subdirectories of a web server, something like that. So very useful to know what those things happen to be. The part that is unusual that you don't see a lot on IPSs is the heuristics part. Heuristics is one where you really are finding things on the network. It is really the artificial intelligence has to be very smart to be able to do that. I think most of the time you don't see a lot of heuristics to be able to do that. But that is one that can be very useful if the heuristics are built in a way to look for certain bad things to occur. So might be useful. Yeah, heuristics very good for catching 0 days. Good example there, Jeff. Thank you. In the chat room, by the way, a lot of people trying to figure out the details. All 4 of those are from the Network Plus exam objectives. This is from N10-007, section 2.3. The video that contains this is advanced networking devices. If you're watching this, you can point your mobile device at any of these explanation screens and put a QR code on there so you can jump right to the video that has those details if you would like. So very useful to have that. Functionality can be pretty useful if you're ever working through an IPS and what those might happen to be. So the answer again on this one, we were looking for the anomaly based. If you answered A, 44% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done. Let's do another one. Let's do a multiple choice question and see how you do with this next multiple choice question that asks, a company's contract with a third party states that the internet router should continue to operate properly for approximately 3 years. But if it needs replacing, it will be fixed within 4 hours. Which of the following describes the 3-year and the 4-hour time frame, respectively? Would that be SLA and MTFB? Would it be MTBF and SLA? I think I spelled something wrong here. MTTR and MTBF, but you can work with me on this one. Is it SLA and MTTR, or is it MTTR and SLA? This is a problem, of course, on a live stream, as I can't change this. So this first one should absolutely be MTBF, not MTFB. MTFB is almost a government agency. So let's step through all 5 of these, or all 5 of these again. The question asks, a company's contract with a third party states the internet router should continue to operate properly for approximately 3 years. But if it needs replacing, it will be fixed within 4 hours. Which of the following describes the 3-year and 4-hour time frame, respectively? Is it SLA and MTFB? Is it MTBF? I did it again. SLA and MTBF? Is it MTBF and SLA? Is it MTTR and MTBF? Is it SLA and MTTR, or is it MTTR and SLA? It is a tough one. This is kind of 2 questions in one, isn't that? To have this like that? Not really a tricky question, really just multiple questions all in one to have all of that there. So whenever you start looking through these questions, you will get questions like this on your exam that is kind of 2 questions combined into one. You won't get a lot of them on your exam like this, but I wanted you to kind of get a feel for what these might happen to be. So hopefully you know this answer. You'll be able to break out what these different options are. This is kind of a definition question in many ways, but it's a definition question you have to apply back to practical use, which, by the way, is most of the questions on the exam. The question on the exam is not going to ask you, what does SLA mean? What does MTBF stand for? You're not going to get one of those. That's a trivia question. You will never see a question like that on the exam. They will never ask you, what is layer 4 of the OSI model? They will not ask you that. It's a much more involved question that really talks to what those particular things mean. So make sure you're familiar with that. I tried to make this question one that could be very obvious if you know half the answer. So that's one of the advantages of these questions that kind of ask 2 questions in one, is that if you know one of them, you can almost get rid of other answers very easily. So that's one of the reasons I thought, should I put this one in here? Should I not? I went back and forth and ultimately decided to put this in on the list, which a number of you in the chat room have said you're just delighted about. You're very clear that you're so happy that I included this question on the exam to have that there. So hopefully break this down. And I think on your actual exam, it works the same way. If you know half of the answer, it almost answers all of it for you. So see if you're familiar with all those. It might help you as you're trying to break through all of these and figuring out the details of this. It's one whenever I start going through these, it does help me as well to be able to break through all of this. I think that might help as well. Let's see how we did with this one. A company's contract with a third party states the internet router should continue to operate for approximately 3 years. But if it needs replacing, it will be fixed within 4 hours. Which of the following describes the 3-year and the 4-year time frame, or 3-year and 4-hour time frame, respectively? Is it SLA and MTBF? Is it MTBF and SLA? Is it MTTR and MTBF? Is it SLA and MTTR, or is it MTTR and SLA? Well, it'd be useful to know what these things happen to be. So let's see if we can break out what these real topics are. These are from the recovery slide here on the N10-007 section 3.2, the backup and recovery video. So the first thing to know is in mean time to restore, an MTTR, is how long it takes somebody to repair something. So once they start working on it, how long is it going to take to get this fixed? Which is really the question the managers ask. That's the question the managers over the back of somebody going, we're so glad you're here. How long is this going to be to get this fixed? I'll have it done in 5 seconds. I'll be done in a minute. I'll be done in an hour, whatever it is. That is your mean time to restore or mean time to repair. You also have a mean time between failures. How often will this particular device fail? What is the mean time between these types of failures? This is a very difficult equation because you're talking about sometimes a piece of equipment. It might be a piece of equipment with moving parts. It might be a piece of equipment that does not have moving parts, maybe solid state, maybe not even have a fan in it. Maybe it does have a fan in it. It definitely is powered. Maybe it's not powered. So all of these go into the equation of how long you can wait for something to fail. The mean time between those failures, MTBF, that sounds very similar to something we might have been looking for. Another important statistic that is important to know is what agreement that you might have set up with someone else, that if one of these things breaks or one of these things is operating or not operating, that it will be operating at a certain level within a particular time frame. This is something you commonly see with service providers. It's called a service level agreement. So if you have an internet connection with your service provider, you could write a contract with that provider that says you will provide us with uptime for 99.999% of the time, which means we're only going to be expecting a certain amount of downtime from you. And if you exceed that amount of downtime, then these things would go into effect. Maybe you get a discount. Maybe you get money directly paid to you. Maybe all of these things. SLAs are such a common thing in the industry because it's a contractual agreement between two people to make sure that you are getting what you pay for. And both sides should be willing to come up with a very good SLA, a service level agreement, to make that happen so that both sides are protected. You're going to be paid, I'm going to get a service, and contractually it's there. You see that very commonly for people that are doing break fix, that I've bought a very expensive firewall, I bought a very expensive router, but I can only afford one of those. I can't afford to have one in the back room should it break. So what I'll do is contract with a third party and say, if this router breaks, you have to be here and fix this thing quickly. Let's do a service level agreement that says you're going to be here and you're going to fix this router and be here, and it's going to be up and running within 4 hours. It could be up and running in an hour, maybe 2 hours. Has to be after 4 hours, you have not met the terms of our agreement. Our service level agreement says it has to be fixed in 4 hours from the time we call you. That's a service level agreement. So already we know that the 4-hour time frame is a service level agreement. So we already know it's not A, it's not C, it's not D, because I wanted to know the 3-year and the 4-hour time frame respectively. The 4-hour time frame would be the last thing. So it's either going to be B or it's going to be E. So it's the mean time between failures and the mean time to restore. Well, we got the first part of this in the beginning of the question, which said the internet router should continue to operate properly for approximately 3 years. That is a mean time between failures. So the two topics we were looking for was the mean time between failure and the service level agreement. That means that the answer is B, and 21% of you chose that particular answer. We had 39% of you that chose service level agreement and mean time to repair. But your service level agreement had nothing to do with how long an internet router should continue to operate. Nobody's in control of that. You can't come up with an agreement that says you must make sure that this router continues to operate for 3 years. Well, no, because it could be hit by lightning. It could absolutely possibly be an issue associated with that. So we know that it's not that particular thing. It's not a service level agreement. That is one where you do have to figure out both of those to get this right. But if you knew the second part of this was that you have to be there in 4 hours, has to be back up and running within 4 hours, that's a service level agreement. That's spot on SLA. That's what you're going to have to deal with day after day, month after month. When you're creating the initial contract with the service provider, you're all about the SLAs because this is what gives you your business requirements. You have certain requirements your customers are expecting of you, the certain requirements your organization has. You have to know what those things are. So that is the right answer. Answer B is the right answer. We've already gone through what all of those combinations of words are, or the ones I even made up, apparently. So that's one of those where knowing those and what they are is half the battle. In the chat room, they're saying knowing the acronyms is half the battle. You're right. It's not the whole battle. Don't focus on flashcards. Flashcards are good to at least give you an understanding of what those words are. Service level agreement is SLA. SLA is service level agreement, but that doesn't help you if you don't know what a service level agreement is. So make sure you go the extra step with your flashcards. And once you understand what those words mean, make you understand the broad perspective of how those particular terms are used. So if you answered B, the mean time between failures and the service level agreement, that was the right answer. Well done with that. There are so many acronyms on Network Plus. If you've gone through Network Plus, tons of acronyms, plenty to go through. And if you've gone through my videos, plenty of videos, 101 videos in my Network Plus course. Have you seen all of them? Not everybody has. Some just don't have time. It's over 12 hours of content to be able to go through all of those because it covers subnetting and hardware and service level agreements and cabling and fiber and encryption and all these different things. They're all in those videos, though. Everything, every topic from the exam objectives is in the videos. I use the exam objectives to make my videos and therefore all of the other content that I create. So everything is listed there, but how do you get your hands on it easily? Well, you can, of course, take your own notes as you're watching the videos, or you could take notes that come directly from me. I've already created the notes for you. I have these notes available in my N10-007. There's too many zeros there. The N10-007 course notes. Each video is put into each section of the course notes, all the important graphics, all the important text, everything, all the text from the videos I put in here. So all of those diagrams that help explain how something works, all the details behind the addressing and encryption and subnet masks and all the details, they're all in here in this book. It is full of information. You're talking about 66 pages of information on this, and it's available right now. You can download this right now. You just go to professormesser.com/NPCN, and you can buy those course notes and download them. They are available on my website as a downloadable PDF. There are also links on that page if you wanted to get a physical version. Oh, I've got a physical one right here. Look, it's a real book. It's exactly the same content. There's nothing changed. It's just physical. It's a dead tree that I made into printed things. Because sometimes you just need to have something in your hand. Now, if you get the printed version, the physical edition, you also can download the digital edition for free immediately. So it's a little bonus for getting this because the physical one, you have to print it. It's in full color. It's nice, high quality paper, but that costs money, some extra money. So to have those there. So that's something that might help you too if you're ever trying to get your hands on those last bits of details before you go in to walk into the exam. You can do that. If you get the digital version, it obviously is available anywhere in the world. If you want the physical version, I will send it anywhere in the world. It does have additional costs. International shipping is ridiculously expensive, but it just adds it into the list as you're paying for those. Maybe that can help you as well to have those there. It's a great way also to help support what we're doing here. I don't accept donations. This is what I use to help keep the lights on. So if you want to help out what we're doing here with this crazy experiment of making all of this content free on the internet, it's also a way to help support what we do. And I hope it helps give you something that you can use to help pass your exam as well. That's a win-win in my book. Thank you for your consideration. That's at professormesser.com/NPCN. Let's do some more questions, shall we? Next one on my list says, a system administrator unlocks the door to the data center with a thumbprint and a pin. Which of the following would describe these authentication factors. This is another one of these, is it? Sure is. Is it something you are and something you know? Is it something you have and somewhere you are? Is it something you are or something you do? Is it something you know or somewhere you are? Or is it somewhere you are and something you are? For those of you listening on the podcast who have not turned it off already, we're going to do that again. A system administrator unlocks the door to the data center with a thumbprint and a PIN. PIN, PIN. Which of the following would best describe these authentication factors? Is it something you are and something you know? Is it something you have and somewhere you are? Is it something you are and something you do? Is it something you know and somewhere you are? Or is it somewhere you are and something you are? If you know the answer, please don't put the answer into the chat room. You instead want to go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer right there. It's an easy way to lock it in and see what it happens to be. Again, not a Security Plus question. You guys are very focused on Security Plus today for some reason. Not a Security Plus question. We're doing Network Plus Study Group. So we're all clear. It says Network Plus Study Group at the top, doesn't it? It should say that. You're watching the Network Plus Study Group. The N10-007 Network Plus Study Group. This is a Network Plus question. It's all green. That's how you know. It's a green question. Everything green is Network Plus, although I wore a blue shirt. So maybe that's throwing you. Except Security Plus is red. I don't know. But that's what it does help, though. There are 11% of the topics from Network Plus show up on the Security Plus exam. This is not a CEH practice session. You know that because hopefully it's going pretty well at this point. This is one of those. This is another one of those questions, by the way, that is one of those multiple answer questions. So hopefully maybe you can figure out half of it and you now know what that half happens to be. I really should have almost put 2 more answers onto these, but it just got crazy. It just got ridiculous. So we definitely did not do that. We tried to keep it somewhat easier to follow with this, to have those there. But that's an important consideration because those 11% of the topics from Network Plus show up on Security Plus. You're going to see a little bit of overlap, but the topics on Security Plus will have more of a security focus than the Network Plus will in many cases. This one probably not. This one's pretty spot on that you'll find in both Network Plus and Security Plus. So if you're going to take both, you kind of get a little bonus here. It's a 2-for-1 right now. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asked, a system administrator unlocks the door to the data center with a thumbprint and a PIN, P-I-N, for those of you listening. Which of the following would describe these authentication factors? And it's all those factors I talked about earlier. I'm not going to go. Okay, we'll go through them one more time. Something you are and something you know. Something you have and somewhere you are. Something you are and something you do. Something you know and somewhere you are. Somewhere you are and something you are. And those are a few of our favorite things. Let's see how you did with this. 93% of you made me say that again. We said something you are and something you know. So is that really what those happen to be? We're going to find out by looking at those two things. Something you are is a biometric authentication. It's something associated with you as a physical person. Let's go through these one more time. It is something you're... No, we're not going to. It is really talking about not storing a picture of your fingerprint, but more of a mathematical representation of your fingerprint. And it is a type of topic that is very difficult to change. It's very hard to change your thumbprint. It's very hard to change your handprint. It's very hard to change your iris. So those things generally don't change. Those are locked into you, something that you are. The other thing that we were talking about was a personal identification number. That is something you know. It's something that's in your brain. It's not part of you. It's not part of where you happen to be at that point. It's not something you have on you. It's not something in your pocket. It's not something on your phone. A personal identification number or a password or a pattern on your phone. Those are something you know. That the only way you're going to get that out is if it comes out of your brain. You can't use your thumbprint for that. You can't touch it with your finger. That is something you know. And that would be spot on with all of those that asked about it. Something you are and something you know. Answer A, 93% of you. I went through a lot of talking in that question for something that everybody already knew the answer to. I'm not sure that was worth it for any of us. If you're watching this for continuing education unit credit, then one of the things that you can go is the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link that is at the top or the bottom. Click that. In that Contact Us link, put in your name, your email address, and in the subject line, put in that this is the Network Plus Study Group for November 2020. And also on a line by itself in the body of the message, put the super secret code word of the month, which is, what should we do? Something you know. Kind of just pull one out of there that was not the right answer. Something you know is the super secret code word of the month. I just make these up whenever I say it, so I have to remember myself. Something you know, super secret code word of the month. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link, put in your name, your email address, subject line. This is the Network Plus Study Group for November 2020. Something you know is what we chose. So that did come from the right answer. Something you know, like a pin. A P-I-N, not a P-E-N. A P-E-N be something you have. Not an authentication factor, though. P-I-N, something you know, definitely an authentication factor. I know we're kind of at the top of the hour. Let's fit one more in. Let's squeeze in one more question. That one was too easy anyway. Maybe this one will be more difficult for the things that you are doing. The question asks, each time a user attempts to log into an application server, the authentication is denied. Which of the following would provide more information about this issue? Would it be a MIB browser, a port scanner, a spectrum analyzer, a TDR, or a protocol analyzer? Each time a user attempts to log into an application server, the authentication is denied. Which of the following would provide more information about this issue? Is it a MIB browser, a port scanner, a spectrum analyzer, a TDR, or a protocol analyzer? You think you know the answer? Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. You'll, of course, know that. That whole thing I was talking about was continuing education unit credit. It is for obtaining ongoing educational credit from CompTIA and other places, not just CompTIA. So all of those are choices that you could go to be able to figure this out. If you think you know the answer, please no answers in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA. I think I've done pretty well at deleting them all this time. We'll have to see how well I did on the replay. Go through that. I try not to completely ban people. I give you at least one time through, and most everybody figures it out at that point. Do you need to know the difference between a retina and iris scan? You don't. It's your eyeball. It's an eyeball scan. That's all you need to know. You don't have to know the intricacies of how those are mathematically derived or what part of the eye, or is it the blood vessels? You don't just know. You don't need, that's too much information. You don't need to know how the carburetor works. You just need to know that you have one. That kind of thing. Now, later on, if you decide you want to be someone who works on biometric systems dealing with eyeballs, you probably will have to know that. Not part of this exam. So that will help you as well as you go through this and figure it out. This was an interesting question because this one may not be the answer you were thinking about, but the answer you were thinking about probably isn't listed here. This is a common thing on the exam, is what you think the obvious answer is not even a choice. So you have to choose the best possible answer from what's remaining. And this is one of those situations where it asks, each time a user attempts to log into an application server, the authentication is denied. Which of the following would provide more information about this issue? Event viewer, not an option. Event viewer is not on here. You have MIB browser, port scanner, spectrum analyzer, TDR, and protocol analyzer. Of those, 45% of you say it's protocol analyzer, 23% of you say it's a MIB browser, 17% of you say it's a port scanner, 10% say a TDR, and then 5% said spectrum analyzer. That was a pretty good, broad overview of this. So I think that's one of those that that we do have to think about what each one of these things does and which one of these would tell us about users authenticating and how they are denied. So we have to figure out what the choice would be. Now, on this one, if we go with plurality, 44% of you say protocol analyzer. That's the answer I was looking for. I wanted to see from the available options which one would be able to give us any information at all about why an authentication was not working. This is something that we used all the time when setting up authentication servers, because you would set up a firewall, maybe a VPN concentrator, and you would have people authenticating to the firewall or the VPN concentrator using their Windows credentials. Well, to be able to do that, you had to tell the VPN concentrator to query Active Directory via LDAP to be able to see if the username and password was correct. So there was a whole conversation that took place. And very often we get the LDAP configuration wrong. We would type in our username and password. We know we're putting in the right username and password. It doesn't work. Time to get Wireshark, time to get something and capture some packets and watch the conversation go back and forth to be able to do that. So this is a great use. If you're ever trying to figure out why something isn't working, you're going to need a packet capture. And a packet capture is great with these protocol analyzers. Great to have there. If you're ever in a situation where you're trying to troubleshoot a network, an application, the wire, this is a great way to do it. Becoming well-versed in packet captures will take you very, 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 very far in your career. I'm talking as someone who is a systems engineer for Network General for 10 years. So I know about packet captures and how valuable they can be. Make sure you become familiar with packet captures. Of all the different tools they give you, this is a fundamental tool that you really need to know for network and for security, especially, but really for technology overall. Protocol analyzers, and they'll tell you something's not authenticating. Why is that not authenticating properly? I know it's like you're working on the matrix, isn't it? It does seem like that at the beginning, but then suddenly you start to be able to piece together what it's really telling you. It's remarkable the power that's inside of that tool. The right answer indeed was Protocol Analyzer. Now, why wasn't it these others? 24% of you chose MIB browser. The Management Information Base, a MIB, is what SNMP uses. It's the database that SNMP uses to query a device. Generally, an SNMP database doesn't have any details about why an authentication failed. It might have a counter that says authentication did fail, but doesn't have anything else in there that tells you why. It's really more of a statistical information gathering tool. And so anytime you see MIB browser or SNMP, it's just statistics. It's not going to give you a lot of detail. 16% of you said a port scanner. Port scanner, great to determine if a particular service is working on a device, but it doesn't tell you why or why not an authentication worked properly. That was not proper English, but you know what I'm saying. Why an authentication did not work properly, port scanner is not going to tell you why it did not work properly. You also have a TDR, kind of in the same group as a spectrum analyzer. A time domain reflectometer is something that you would connect to a copper connection to see the quality of the cable. Really a layer 1 cable quality tester, wire mapper, to tell you what's going on. Spectrum analyzer, kind of the wireless version of that, tells you how the wireless spectrum is working. There's also wired spectrum as well. It could possibly tell you the wired spectrum too. Very useful to have, but not tell you anything about authentication. It's not going to tell you why authentication is not working. The best possible answer, really the only possible answer here that tells you why that was a problem, is indeed the Protocol Analyzer, answer E. 46% of you got that one absolutely correct. Well done with that. Can you believe we went through an hour of Q&A already? All these questions, by the way, came directly from the Network Plus exam objectives. Network Plus exam objectives you can download from the CompTIA website. I have a link that goes over there from my website at professormesser.com/objectives. It will take you right over there. If you're ever wondering, what are they going to ask me on the exam? Am I ready to take the exam? Do I know everything that will be asked of me? They've already documented all this for you. I've had people come to my site and tell me, I took the exam. They asked me things I wasn't expecting. And they said, what did they ask you? They asked me about time domain reflectometers. They asked me about a TDR. Well, it's in the exam objectives. Don't you have those? Oh, I just thought they were an outline. I just thought they were kind of a broad overview. No. They are very detailed. They are probably the single most valuable tool to start and end your study process. So if you don't have these already, make sure you get them. Incredibly valuable to have in your list of things. Print them out. Write on them. Do whatever you can do. Annotate them on your screen. They should be all marked up at this point. So make sure you take advantage of those. I do one of these study groups every month. You can, of course, go back and look at all the replays on my website. There's a category just for study group replays for this, to have all of that there. And the study groups are available right there on the category list. The next study group, if you're watching this in November of 2020, is in December. On December the 15th, we're going to do one of those. By the way, December's a little different. You notice I have an A+ study group on the 8th, another one on the 10th. For the Core 1 and Core 2. Network Plus on the 15th, an unusual, a day that is Tuesday. We don't usually have these on Tuesdays, but we are in December. And we're doing a Security Plus study group 2 days after that on the 17th. That's so I can have that week of Christmas and the week after open for me. So that we're kind of crunching them up together, but maybe that would be good. Am I going to wear a Christmas hat for that one? Well, that guarantees that I am not. No, well, that's not true. Maybe I will. Sure, I can absolutely wear a Christmas hat on that one. Not really. But they're all on my website. You can find the study group times at professormesser.com/calendar. And if I change this, sometimes they change. Something happens. I get something I have to do on the 15th. I get jury duty or something. Got to go to that. So you'll see them. Sometimes they'll move around. If you're ever wondering when it's going to be, go to professormesser.com/calendar. It's right there. Stick around for the next hour. I have now a way that you're going to ask me questions. So I've been asking you questions for an hour. How about you ask me some questions? I'll open up the phone lines, take questions from the chat room in the after show. Don't forget about my Network Plus bundle. It's available at the Professor Messer website at professormesser.com/netsuccess. And of course, you've got free content on YouTube, all the videos, every single video, every second of every video available to watch free right there. Your weekly study group questions, your pop quiz questions, which are also available on my website. If you want to find all of them in one place, it's also on professormesser.com, or you can find them on Twitter, on Instagram. If you liked some of these questions, you got something out of today, please hit that like button in the videos. I know that content creators tell you this all the time, but the reason they tell you this is because our friends at YouTube watch these things, and we have meetings with them, and they want to know, are you creating content people like? We can't tell, and they are not going to be able to tell unless you hit that like button. So thank you for clicking that like button. That's all you have to do. You don't have to do anything else. If you did above and beyond the like, that would be great. But that is something that would be really great if you could do that for me. Thank you so much to have those things there. That is the end of the study group, but not the end of what we're doing today. Stick around for the after show. Otherwise, we will see you next time on the Network Plus study group. You can hear me clicking buttons back here because we're not done yet. We gotta be able to get this going. Okay. Time for the after show, everybody. Does my site have a CAPTCHA? Did I put one on there? I might have. I didn't think I did. I thought it was a behind the scenes CAPTCHA that you can't see. But I just changed out all the things on there. So maybe it's popping up for you, or maybe I just don't know what I'm doing. Entirely possible. Let's not go beyond the scope of what could be possible, because that could really be possible. Bear with me a moment. I'm going to get the phone lines up and running, and we'll talk about how you can put in questions, call me, talk to me. I need to get Skype up on my screen so that I can send this and call in. This is all done in the cloud. I'm calling into the cloud. You're calling into the cloud. I'll tell you how to do it in just a moment to have all of this here. Well, you're welcome. And then I type in some things on my side with a pound sign.
Enter your 6-digit PIN.
I will do that if I remember my 6-digit PIN, these pins. And the nice lady says,
welcome, Professor Messer.
Thanks, nice lady. That means that you could call in as well. Not from that button, you won't. From that button. You would call in the continental U.S. It's an 800 number, toll-free number. I pay for it. 855-785-RJ45. West of the Rockies, it's 855-785-7545. That will get you here. You can also call in from anywhere in the world for free using Skype, because Skype will allow you to call in with no Skype minutes if you're calling a toll-free number, which this is. You just put a +1 at the beginning, +1, 855-785-7545. That will get you there as well. You can call in. That's with telephone voice communication. I will also take electronic communication in my chat room. If you're watching this live on YouTube, there's a chat that's there. It's the same chat that's on my website. So it's one chat room. See everything here. So if you have questions, you can put them right in the chat room as well to have that there. It's all available. You're able to break down and get to all of those things. One of the things that I do as we're working through this is figuring out what questions should be in here. So if there's other questions you would like to have on here, you can always send me notes on that as well. I love to put these in here. Is the Network Plus exam more difficult than the Security Plus exam? I think the content, or at least the difficulty level of content for Security Plus and Network Plus are very similar. I think the style and the scope is very different. So Network Plus has a lot of technical things in it. It talks a lot about things there's a lot of command lines. It talks a lot about routing and switching and dynamic routes. And you've got subnetting, subnetting itself. It's sort of a big process. Security Plus, though, is more process and procedure. There is, of course, some command line on Security Plus. A lot of it you would already know from Network Plus, because it's the very broad things, the pinging, the trace routes, those types of things, the DNS lookups, the port scans. But the Security Plus is kind of a different approach. It's a much broader, much more academic exam. But I think the difficulty level is similar. So it's a different style of topic, but I don't think it's much more difficult than Network Plus. I think they are designed to be very similar. A Plus, Network Plus, and Security Plus I find to be similar in their difficulty level, very different, of course, in the content that you're studied on. So that's kind of my approach from having courses built on these over the last number of years with all those. Now, Security Plus is getting a slightly more difficult because they're making it much bigger. The next Security Plus exam that will technically release tomorrow, but I recommend that you don't take it until after July. Take the current version right now as long as you can, because it's going to be 30% larger. The number of topics you have to know for Security Plus is now 30% bigger. It is by far the largest exam. So although the content I don't find to be more difficult than Network Plus, there's more that you have to know. So I guess that is part of the difficulty level, isn't it? Is memorizing or knowing all of these things. So perhaps there is a little bit of truth to Security Plus as a more challenging exam. I don't know that it's more difficult. Is that the same thing? Maybe it is. But that's my approach anyway, if you look at both of those. Let's turn the phone lines on this side so we can actually hear what's going on. Let's talk to some folks on the 313. It's Ali. Thanks for calling back, Ali. What's your question?
How you doing, Professor Messer?
So good for you to call. Doing well. What can we do for you?
I have a quick question. I recently have an interview, and one of the questions they asked me was about the network drive connectivity. So how would you go about that? Like if they say, you suddenly lose the drive, how would you answer that? Like what's the process? What do you think?
What do they mean that we lose a drive? I guess that's really the question, kind of a follow-up question about this one. Are they saying that you're in a Windows drive and it's been mapped and now you want to be able to, the drive went away, it's just not there anymore, and now you have to figure out why, that kind of thing? That's a problem that happens all too often in these environments. It could be for many different reasons. But of course, if it was there at one point, it had to disappear, or was it even there at one point? You're going to have something that you can get from Event Viewer if we're talking about Windows. And that's probably what they are referring to this, is why that's there or not there. It's a question about how did that drive get mapped in the first place? Is it mapped during the login process? Is there a login script that runs to map that drive? Is it a process where it is configured as to be a permanent drive in their profile? There's different ways to map a drive or to have that drive suddenly mapped in there. So that's another question to ask, which is How did they get there to begin with? And then how did it go away? Did the user comment that suddenly it just wasn't there? Did they accidentally click to disconnect it? If you try to reconnect to it, what happens? The server might be down on the other side, or the network connection might be down to wherever you're connecting to. Was this over, now these days everybody's at home, was it over VPN? Did they not have their VPN connected the whole time and it timed out and disconnected the drive? So these are the questions they're hoping that you will ask in the interview. They often are not looking for you to answer the question with a definite answer. They want you to go down this troubleshooting step, this troubleshooting pathway, and ask these questions. A lot of what you learn when you start doing troubleshooting is to ask questions about what people are saying. I know that we talk about this in A+, that as technologists, we want to jump out with the right answer as quickly as possible. But I think when you get into a pattern of asking more about what do you mean when you say it's disappeared, was there an error message that showed up? Did it suddenly just disappear? Do you think you might have clicked something on the screen? Those are questions you should always be following up with and gathering more information before you finally decide what you think the answer might be. Otherwise, you're just taking a guess. They say, "Oh, why did this particular drive disappear? The VPN went down." Well, how do you know that? How do you even know there's a VPN involved? You can't jump to the final conclusion. Okay, it's not a VPN. It's a security profile. What if there isn't a security profile? The network went down. So otherwise, you're just kind of guessing. I see this online all the time when people ask a question. They just guess. Your VPN went down. The network broke. The connection was established. They changed the profile. You have to kind of always ask those questions. A good question. Chat room's doing this. When's the last time it was working? Is it working for your coworkers? Those are all great questions to ask. These are people that have obviously troubleshooted when somebody's network drive has gone away. Ask more questions. That's really what they're looking for you during an interview process, is to go through in your mind how you would troubleshoot this problem. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have the answer either. And you could say it could be a number of different things, but they're looking to see how would you go down that road of trying to make that happen. And that's one that the more questions you ask of them, the more impressed they're going to be during that interview that they think, okay, you're someone who's really going to think this through at all of these different places. That works for every single troubleshooting question you're ever going to get. I also come from an environment where I worked as a systems engineer where I was representing a company's product. So I would represent network management tools. I would represent security products. And in the meeting, we would walk in, we'd do our introductions, and they'd say, does your firewall support VPNs? Well, that's a great question. What type of VPNs are you interested in? The technical person to me goes, yes, supports VPNs. But that's a big question. And they asked the question because there was something behind it. Oh, well, what kind of VPNs are you looking for? Do you need site-to-site VPNs? Do you need, and I probably don't even go that far. Just say, what kind of VPNs you're looking for? What are you using today? Are you using anything? Are you looking to upgrade? Do you need one that'll go faster? With all these questions. So you start gathering more details about the question that started with. And it usually is more about, sometimes it's not about VPNs. It's about performance of an application or performance of a particular feature. Those are the things people want to know about. So you kind of have to follow that path all the way down. Maybe that's giving you something to at least think through, Ali, as you go through those troubleshooting and situations. How did the interview go?
It didn't go that well because of that. There's some stuff, as you said. I thought, I have to answer. I was looking to answer the question as you just said. So now you gave me a different perspective, which is, to be honest with you, I wasn't thinking about that way. I thought, they're giving you an answer to a question to answer. But now it makes sense. They're probably just asking just to see the pattern that I'm using for troubleshooting.
There's different cases. Usually when you're first brought in an interview like that, usually straight up, this one's going to be a technical interview or this one's going to be a non-technical interview. And I would always, and this was a very common one, I got this one from a coworker that I used to work with. he would ask very first thing, this is an interview for a systems engineer for a next generation firewall. It's a very high-end technical product. The first question he would ask somebody on a technical interview, tell me everything you know about ARP. That was the question. Now, that's obviously a technical question where we're looking for a technical answer. And there is a number of different explanations you can give about ARP and proxy ARP and how we use or don't use reverse ARP anymore and what ARP does and where the cache is stored and what problems you would run into with ARP and where ARP will help you troubleshoot problems. And I could talk for 30 minutes on ARP. And we just talk about ARP and when it's messed us up and when we had problems and et cetera. But that's what he was looking for, is for somebody to give a technical dissertation about that particular protocol. There's a place for you to go with that. But when you get into some of these more detailed questions about there was a drive here a second ago and now the drive's not there anymore, what happened? That's a very open-ended, broad question. It really, in my mind, leads me to think they wanted you to go down a troubleshooting path, ask some questions, and kind of go back and forth with them a little bit. That's one that maybe you can stick in your list of things to talk about if you ever get another opportunity in front of them.
So the event viewer, you started with the event viewer. Like if somebody called you, on the desktop support, and you say they said to you, my drive was working yesterday, I just came in today. And then you ask them, anybody in the office had the same problem? No.
Good.
So if they answer that, then what will be your next logical, question?
There's so many other.
To the event viewer.
Now, I wouldn't even jump to looking at troubleshooting tools or talking about how to resolve it yet. There's a whole bunch of questions I would go down. In fact, we'd almost get to points in some of these meetings I was in where they'd say, quit asking me questions about this. Can we really talk about it finally? But because I want to know more and more and more and more about these things. So I want to gather more information. Oh, what was the drive letter that you were using? Do you know what server or what the drive connected to? Do you know where that server is located? Do you know when would you use this or how would you use the data that's on this particular drive? And of course, you may even want to talk to the people who set up the drive. How does this drive originally get built? How does it map? Is that during the login process? Yes or no? Is it something that's mapped on the person's drive and they do it manually every time? That's good information. No. So there's all these questions you want to kind of build the case on. And then once you have all that information, you could start saying, well, here's what I would do. I'd have the user log out and log back in. So problem solved 99% of the time because it's part of the login process. So if that doesn't work, then now we have to go a little deeper into this. I need more information about the drive that's being built. Let's look at his login script to see what drive it is that is being done. Let's grab information from the event viewer. Maybe that can tell us why the drive did not map properly during the login. There's going to be a log made during that login process. That would be useful to have. So those are things that will very commonly be a good set of things to step through, so that we can kind of break this down and figure out where the problem may be coming from. But I'm not going to solve the problem in an interview question like that. I'm going to say, here's what I will do to get closer to solving it. And either during the reboot process or looking through these logs, we're probably going to find out that particular drive was removed from the login process, that his group access was changed and no longer has access to that share, that the network connection to that site has been down all day, so he can't. There's going to be some other reason behind the scenes. It could be any one of those things, and I think that's the end of the answer.
Oh yeah, okay. That's another thing that you just mentioned about the group access, because 99% of the time they're hooked up to Active Directory, and something might have changed there too, that they don't have access to that shared drive.
Happens all the time.
So I mean, I just take it as a learning experience. I'm, with these interviews, you just find every time that there's something come up. But now I'm better with that, where I'm writing things down and I'm trying to figure it out. So that way I'm more prepared for the next one. That's all I can do.
That is all you can do. And I think the more hands-on you get with Windows, the more times you're going to run into problems like this. It will start to be something that is just a common thing. They may have been looking for somebody who's seen this before and can talk more about it. And then they were able to parse out in the interview, okay, well, maybe you don't have the experience for that particular role that we're looking for. And they kind of go with the next thing. But there's lots of directions to go. And if you at least talk through how you would troubleshoot it, even not ever having troubleshot it before, that's valuable information to bring up in the interview as well.
Okay. Yeah, right now I just downloaded Server 2016.
Great.
and Exchange, and I'm working on that VirtualBox and doing all this stuff now.
Fantastic. You'll notice that Microsoft has a lot of great tools in their Azure cloud to also get these things up and running. Click a button and you've got Windows Server running instantly kind of thing. So take advantage of those as well.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Best of luck, Ali.
As usual. Yeah, go ahead.
There's some folks in the chat room said they already learned something from you being in this interview. So I appreciate you calling.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're trying to help each other out because it's, this is how it goes. You know, the more you know, the more you can do better. And thank you so much for all your help. It's always great to talk to you.
Please call anytime. Good talking to you. Best of luck.
Thank you. Bye.
And you're absolutely right. It's a community, and it's one of the things you find in this business. And it's remarkable how many people I have on my LinkedIn that go back to my very first jobs that I ever worked at in this industry. Because once you kind of get in that group, you kind of know people throughout the years. And I've had jobs where I worked in a single city. I've had jobs when I worked in a single country. I've had jobs that were worldwide positions. And it's a small community. I still see these people around. We online. We talk at trade shows. You always see that. So take advantage of the people that you know. Somebody you know is going to be running into one of these problems with a mapped drive and would be able to help you out with some of those for the details of that. Let's go back to the phone calls. There is Dennis. Thank you for calling. What's your question?
Hi, Professor Messer. Yeah, this is Dennis calling, and I've taken your Core 1 and 2 practice exams to assist me on the exams, and thank God and your guidance on that I passed my exam on October 31st.
Nice.
So,
congratulations.
I want to give you a shout out for your help on assisting me to help, because I've been trying to see how can I pass them, and after reviewing your practice exams, it helped me way more. Now I'm on to Network Plus. And I was going to ask you, when is the best time to take that Network Plus? Since I know that they're, updating the exams, and I just heard you talking about Security Plus, that there's going to be extended, but is there going to be any changes for the Network Plus? Or, Network Plus?
Well, Network Plus is one that if you do the math of when the current Network Plus came out, we would normally be expecting that a new version to be released at the first quarter of 2021. But because of all the delays that have happened this year, and you'll notice even Security Plus was pushed back 6 months, the N10-008 has also been pushed back 6 months. So the first time you would see a new Network Plus exam would be September of 2021. So not quite a year away, but almost about a year away. They're saying September of 2021 is when the N10-008 would be released. That means that the current version of the exam, the N10-007, would be retired 6 months after that if they do it the same way they've always done it. So in March of 2025 is when you can today estimate a retirement of the N10-007. March 2022, not 2025. March of 2022 March of 2022 would be the estimated retirement of the N10-007. And I know that because it's written right in front of me. I'm just incapable of saying it out loud. March of 2022. Now that date, by the way, is an estimate. It's based on the September 2021 release of the N10-008, and I'm just adding 6 months to that. CompTIA can change their mind. They can make it longer. They can make it shorter. Just always keep checking back on the CompTIA website, but it's a pretty safe bet that at this time next year, you'd still be able to take the N10-007 exam.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I was just wanting to double check with you because I know you know more stuff like that. And after, I take like a 2-week break from all the studies of the core 1 and 2 and just wanted to start studying for the Network Plus.
Right.
I just wanted to make sure that I was on the right, I was studying for the right release since I know they changed them.
Yep, you're going to have no problem. You have at least a year, maybe a little bit more to get into that. It usually, on average, takes people about 2 to 3 months to study for one of these exams, so you should be just fine.
Okay, I appreciate it, Professor Messer, and best of luck and everything.
Thanks, Dennis. Same to you. Let us know how Network Plus goes.
Thank you.
That's a good exam to take, too. I know I say this a lot whenever I do these study groups for Network Plus, but it's such a good exam to have, a good certification to have. Everything you do in IT touches the network, everything. So if you're in a situation where you're trying to learn more about security, about operating systems, about server, about Linux, about any of those things, the network is a big piece of that. So make sure that you are as familiar as you can be with the networking side of things. It really does help you throughout your career, anywhere you go in IT. I can really speak to this as somebody who really focused on networking very early in my career and worked with a protocol analyzer company, which eventually turned into Network Associates, turned into an enormous security and network management company. That's pretty strong. So it really, from that point on, was the foundation for everything else I did. And it can be for you as well. Let's go back to the phones, the 301 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Professor. My name's Harold, and I'm calling from Maryland.
Thanks for calling, Harold. What can we do for you?
Hey, so I earned my A+ Network and Security Plus over the summer, and I was actually able to get a job in IT as a Tier 2 help desk technician.
Great.
So I've been working there for 2 months now, and on top of that, I'm actually going to be graduating with my master's in cybersecurity in January.
Wow.
So obviously, yeah. So, and all that thanks to you, by the way. But anyways, obviously I want to get into cybersecurity. Well, you helped me with the resources.
Great.
But obviously I want to get into cybersecurity, and so I know I'm on the right path right now, and my company does have a cyber department. I guess I'm just like anxious. I want to really get into cybersecurity now.
Right.
But I want to work in that direction. So my question is, what certifications should I be looking towards now, just while I'm getting the experience right now? Because right now, I'm thinking about looking at CISA Plus, but I know there's other ones like CISSP and CASP Plus. And there's just a whole lot of certifications out there. And I really want to, really put myself out there to get into cyber. And so on top of that too, what advice would you also give me in terms of getting into cybersecurity?
Yeah, the cybersecurity market is an interesting one. It is, the term itself means nothing. Cybersecurity has nothing. It doesn't have a specific definition. It's just sort of a broad term that is used overarching to describe anything relating to technology and security. That's really it. It could be in the computer science side of things. It could be in the information technology side of things. It could be relating to cloud-based security. It could be relating to firewalls. It could be relating to application security. It just has a broad scope. So the real question you kind of have to think about, and I know this is sort of difficult without being technically in the cybersecurity industry at the moment, which is what do you want to do? Is what part of security interests you the most? And some people are very interested in the process side of things and understanding risk management and getting into that side of auditing and risk management of security. Other people are interested in the operational side, working with firewalls and intrusion prevention and VPN technologies. Other people are interested in the reporting side of things, working with SIMs and working with that large amount of data. And these days, doing massive, large data type environments and working through threat identification, using these large data sources and querying to be able to find that. Those are three very different types of security roles, and we're not even through the list of them yet. So it's not that you even know what the answer to that question is yet of all of those things, because they're all very different, all have different nuances, and you probably at this point haven't even had a chance to really look into them to see what those particular roles might be. And in some environments, those roles even mesh together a little bit, where the person who's working on the firewall operations may also be responsible for some of the data collection and reporting that they're doing. So there's some overlap between those two. If I had to kind of say where you should go this early on in your career, I'm going to go with what I just mentioned earlier, which is get as strong a foundation in networking as you can to be able to get into that security role. And I mentioned that because almost every part of these cybersecurity roles have an extremely strong foundation in networking. Let's take an example of somebody who's managing a firewall. These days, it's a next generation firewall. There's an enormous application level presence on that firewall. Understanding the way applications work across the network is going to be incredibly important, and therefore understanding how to view those applications at a protocol level is going to be very important. But this also requires that if you're plugging in and working with in an enterprise that has these next generation firewalls, you probably have more than one of them. You probably have two of them, one that is either active and running, and another one that's up and running at the same time that's running as a standby unit. Or they might be both running at the same time, called active-active instead of active standby. So there's two machines running at the same time. How do you get the traffic routed or sent through those devices in a way that keeps all the data flows working properly, that doesn't block any traffic inadvertently? What if one of those devices fails? How does the network fail over to the other one of those? When you initially plug them in, are you going to plug them in as a layer 2 device? Is it going to be a layer 3 device? If it's a layer 3 device, you're going to be doing routing. So there's going to be routing tables inside of that device. There's probably going to be an internet on one side with one type of routing technology like BGP. And there's probably going to be another routing system on the other side like EIGRP or some other type, OSPF or something else. You may have to do some type of route redistribution between the two to get traffic from going back and forth between them. There may also be other technologies that tap into that, but all of those things I just mentioned are networking questions. None of them were security questions yet. And yet that was an enormous part of engineering and installing that particular firewall and keeping it running, were just tons of networking questions. Now let's add another layer on top of this next generation firewall. It's also our VPN concentrator. So now we're dealing with there's some security questions. We have security certificates that we're putting on this device. We, of course, have to set up routing across this device. If it's an IPsec VPN, there's routing to another location and security questions there. If it is someone it's in-user VPN, then we've got in-user IP addressing that has to be considered on the side of this. So now we're mixing kind of the security and the networking side on this, and that's where they start to blend together. So that's why I usually will tell people, if you're really serious about getting into IT security or cybersecurity in general, having a very strong, almost expert knowledge in networking is going to be a huge advantage for you. That's what everything else is layered on the IT security side. It almost even more so if you get into cloud security, which practically everybody is at some point, at some level these days, because there's so much that we're doing in the cloud. Because there's now next generation firewalls in the cloud. We've got routing going on in the cloud. We've got different ways to manage that traffic in the cloud. And it's all about making sure traffic goes from point A to point B and it stays that way. Well, you got to know how the network operates to be able to apply the security technologies to it. So where you are in your career, or just really starting out, getting the cybersecurity degree, a master's in cybersecurity, kind of covers a lot of the formal degree part of this. You've got some certifications you've got already. I'd recommend learning as much as you can about the network. Network Plus is a fine place to start, but the type of knowledge you need really starts at kind of a CCNA level knowledge, the Cisco Certified Network Administrator certification. That's sort of the minimum point to get into understanding how do switches work, how do routers work, how do you configure them, how do you set them up for redundancy, how do you recover them if they break, how do you make all these machines talk to each other. That's really what happens in the CCNA. CCNA is not an entry-level certification, though. That is more of the next level certification you get after you've covered the entry levels. But if I had to point you in a direction, it may not be. It really would not necessarily be a security cert right now. It would really be more of the networking cert. And then later on, if you wanted to apply the CASP, the CISA Plus, or one of those other security, next level security certifications on top of that, that might be fine afterwards. But there's a big gap that's ready to be filled right now to get you over that hump, and it's really going to be the networking piece. That's kind of the direction I'd point you in, Harold.
Wow, that was incredibly helpful, and I'm glad you said that too, because I mean, the Network Plus exam actually had a really good time, like a really fun time, really learning all that material, and it does pique my interest a lot. And I was thinking about CCNA too, but no, yeah, that was very, very helpful. Thank you for that. It's
hard to make a bad decision at this point, and whatever you choose to do, whatever direction it's going to go, you're going to be building on what an empty foundation, not empty, but you've got certifications now, but you've got plenty of places to fill in those blocks and kind of build up the foundation of where it is. You can't go wrong. You really can't.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thanks again. And yeah, just thanks.
I appreciate the call. Best of luck. That's one that I think, in the chat room, we're sort of mentioning this too. For some reason, people throw around the CCNA as if it is comparable to Network Plus, and they'll tell people, don't do Network Plus, just take your CCNA. Well, those are two very different exams from a difficulty level. The CCNA is a very complex exam compared to Network Plus. They are not comparable at all. Network Plus is the entry level. CCNA would be a part after that. Now, there are people that skip the Network Plus and they go right to the CCNA. But what you have to end up doing is learning all the Network Plus content while you're trying to also learn the CCNA content, which if that's something that you like or something that's easy for you, maybe that's okay. Maybe you've got some experience in it. That's fine. But if you don't have any networking experience and you jump right into CCNA, you're going to have to spend a lot more time studying. You're going to have to spend a lot more time studying. Did I mention how much more time studying you're going to have to take? It's going to be big. Let's go back to the phones. 240 area code. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hey, Professor Mesa. How you doing today?
Hey, thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Yeah, my name is Clovet. I'm calling from Maryland. I'm planning to take my my Security Plus on Friday, the 13th.
Okay.
And I've been going through your study guide, your practice questions, and everything. I was just wondering if you got few clues for me. A little bit more touch now that I'm with you on the phone, for you to give me some guide. If I have to add some more stuff to get really, really prepared.
Sure.
To take the exam.
Well, this last week it's an important week. This last week of trying to figure out what you need to study before walking into the exam room is an important one. And what I pretty much say to people across the board, the final week should be you checking things off of the exam objective sheet. You should be able to go to that sheet and go through every single topic in the exam objectives and be able to explain that objective to someone else. Even if that someone else is you in the mirror, be able to explain what that happens to be. It's where you can really tell if you skip through some topics, because if you can't explain that topic, you can circle it, you can make a note and say, I need to go back and study that particular topic to really get it down for Security Plus. I think some of the things you're doing now is what I would also do in those final days up to taking the exam. And I think it's one of the best things that you can do is Q&A. Get as much Q&A as you can. If you have my practice exams, those are great Q&A to go through. I've designed them to have a similar feel, a similar style as the questions that you would get on the actual exam. They're not actual exam questions, obviously. I wrote each one of those questions originally, but I tried to write them with the same voice or the same style as the actual exam. So you'll notice in my book, some of these questions are very long-winded. They just go on and on and on. And you're wondering, why is Professor Messer talking so much in this question? Well, that's because the questions on the exam do this. I don't necessarily agree with the style that is asked for all of these, for 100% of these questions, but that is what they ask. So I figure if I want to make it realistic, I will make it just as crazy as an actual exam question happens to be. So whether it is my practice exams or one of the other good practice exams that people talk about on places like the CompTIA subreddit, is a great place to go to get that. Get as much Q&A as you can going into this. In a way, it's going to bring out for you the places in the exam objectives where maybe you need a little more work. So sometimes going through the Q&A is going to solve or be that part of going through the exam objectives as long as we have that. So I think that's a good place to go. I think you're doing the right things by going to the Q&A, and the objectives would probably be the follow-up that I would recommend for that, Cloven.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Professor Mesa. I'll read the Q&As and I'll, do some more practices before Friday.
We're sending you good vibes. Best of luck on that exam.
Thank you very much, sir. You have a good day.
You too. The exam itself is one that, if you've gone through Q&A, you've done the hands-on, you've gone through the book, you've watched the videos, even then I find that people occasionally are thrown by this exam. And rightly so. The questions are a little bit crazy on this Security Plus exam at some times. When I was writing the book, I tried to write it from the perspective of what they would ask on the exam. It does get to be a little bit involved with some of these questions, more so on Security Plus than on A Plus, and even Network Plus. I think Security Plus goes a little bit overboard with the questions. Maybe that will change with the 601. I don't know. I don't think that it will. I think it'll be about the same. Not all of them are long-winded, but if reading long questions is a challenge for you, just get ready for that, because that will be something that comes up on the Network Plus exam. So for those of you that missed our conversation we were having about exam retirement dates for Network Plus, the N10-007, I would expect to be retired in March of 2022. That's a year from March. So you've got over a year before I would expect the current exam to be retired. That's based on a release date that was provided at a recent CompTIA event in the UK, where they mentioned that the N10-008 would be released in September of 2021. So September plus another 6 months is when the current version will retire. That puts it at March of 2022. That's where I'm getting that date from. So that's the retirement date for Network Plus. The way it will probably work for most of us, most everybody's working on Security Plus right now and creating the new Security Plus content. We're going to get Security Plus out the door. By the time we get it out the door and get the practice exams written and everything else, we're going to be rolling right into Network Plus, I would think. We got a little bit of time between, probably. Probably won't take that long to get Security Plus out. I'm already finishing up my Security Plus course content. The way I do courses is I write the entire course before I shoot a video, which is a little different than I think how other people do it. I like to get the entire thing written because I think there's parts of the later on in the course that have an effect over other things. So I want to have the entire thing written. Plus, I can write the entire course. I can create the course notes immediately so that people that want those notes can have them in their hands as fast as possible. And then I can start just rolling out the videos. The videos go very, very quick. The process of writing a course is really the longest part because it has to be perfect. It has to be done right the first time. You have to get the context from the exam objectives. You have to make sure the content is correct. Double and triple check these things. That's pretty important. So I make sure that the entire course is written first. Then shooting the videos is almost mindless because it's already done. It's already written for me. Then it's just sitting in front of the camera. It's kind of time consuming, sit in front of the camera and do it, but it's relatively easy because I've already done all the research, the double checking, the editing, making all the content and the slides are ready to go. It's camera ready when I finish it. Hopefully I'll finish this week. So by the end of this week, the new Security Plus for me will be done. The hard part will be done, and I can roll into making the videos and the study groups are in the course notes, and we'll probably do practice exams after that to have those there. If you got the 501 done, you took that, you are Security Plus certified if you took that exam and you passed it. You do not need to take the 601. I recommend you don't take any other Security Plus exams ever again in your life. Once you get one done, you're done. You're Security Plus certified. You're not Security Plus certified 501. You're not Security Plus certified 601. You're Security Plus certified. So if you pass the 501, you earn your Security Plus. If you pass the 601, you earn your Security Plus. It's exactly the same thing. Now, I find it interesting. You're saying your job requires it. What do they require of that? That doesn't even make sense for that to require you if you're already Security Plus certified. What are you going to do? Get another exactly the same Security Plus certification? That's unusual, especially considering you already know half of it. That doesn't even make sense. Tell your manager it doesn't make sense. Managers don't care. I know they don't care. My study groups for Security Plus will not be SY0601 starting next week because I don't recommend that anybody take this SY0601 right now. Why would you? It's 30% larger, 50% of the content's brand new, and not one book is on the market. Why would you take this exam? You're setting yourself up for failure. Don't take the 601 exam right now. That's ridiculous. Don't do that. The first time you'll probably see some books out for this, textbooks out for this, is I think January. Maybe in March, you're going to see more of them come out. So you're not looking to have many choices available for study materials until March of 2021. So we're talking 4 or 5 months from now. That's a long time. It takes a long time to make this content, to edit it, to publish it, to make it available to you. It's a time-consuming process, and this is perfectly normal. This is what happens every time an exam is released. It takes 3 to 4 months to finally get the products out to the market because they don't lock the exam objectives in until, months before the release date. So that's the situation here as well. Tomorrow, when the SY0601 exam is available, I don't think there's any books available for it yet, and there's not going to be for months. So why would you take this exam? That's a very, very bad idea, especially when there's no upside to be able to have this. And tell your managers to call me so we can talk about this. They've lost their minds. Or just send them the link. Hello, manager. Thanks for watching this part of the study group. There's no good reason to take the SY0601 if someone's already passed the SY0501. It just doesn't make any sense. Thanks for watching. That's one where it's good to know this, though, because I sometimes will put in my videos, and I have a video on why you should not wait for the SY0601 exam where I talk about all of these things and many other reasons why you should take the 501 right now before it is retired in July. And the 501, by the way, this current Security Plus exam retires in July. Why wouldn't you take that exam? It just makes perfect sense to take this exam right now or sometime before it retires in July. And I explain all of that in that video, why you should not wait for the SY0601. I'm not really sure, and somebody was mentioning the last study group, is CompTIA had a presentation they did, and I should go back and watch it, and they're very proud about the SY0601 and the type of content that's in there, and it is a big exam with lots of content, but they really went way overboard with this. They went like super overboard. 30% larger exam. And I think I was thinking about this where I do all my good thinking in the shower. I was kind of thinking about why did they do it that way? And then I was kind of thinking about what they've done over the last number of years with the CISA Plus and the CASP. And I think what they were trying to do is really separate out the exams into functional types of exams. So Security Plus is definitely more process and procedure oriented For example, on the SY0501, there's a big section at the end where you have to know all of these different encryption protocols, hashing protocols, all of these different, like you have to know the differences between the RSA and the PGP and all of these other asymmetric and symmetric encryption methods. None of those protocols are on the SY0601. There's a few of their block protocols, block methods of encryption are on there. Those block methods are important to know because you talk about them as part of the things that are there, but none of the detailed AES, PGP, RC4, MD5, all of those things, they're not even in the exam objectives. They don't exist in the Security Plus exam objectives for 601. So they really did change the nature of the certification, I think, so they can make the other exams more technical, which they are. So CISA Plus, for example. So those are things that are kind of pushed off into a later exam to make those the more technical exams. And I think make Security Plus more of the broader exams, the foundational exam. They're just building a really big foundation. If I had a negative to say towards CompTIA regarding the 601, they just made it too big. And some of the stuff they just go way too deep into. There's a huge section on risk management that IT people don't really, it's important to know the foundation for that. But unless you're planning to go into risk management, I think that's what they were thinking, is that cybersecurity is a big, big pie. Let's talk about every slice of the pie that we can. Well, as it turns out, that makes the exam 30% larger, it was already a huge exam. Now it's an enormously huge exam. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for people, is not the complexity of the content. It's the amount of content that you have to know. We'll see how it goes. We'll see we don't even know what the exam looks like. The exam's not even available yet. It's not available until tomorrow. So we don't know. It might be very different than what we're thinking. We will find out. I can't wait to see. It'll be a lot of fun. But it is a very good set of exam objectives. I like the objectives. I like the content that's in the exam. I like what people are learning. I like the perspective of the new things that they added. I just think it's too much. I just think there's way too much in there. They still aren't going very deep, but they just went even wider. So it's one of those things that is important to know if you're planning to sit for that Security Plus exam. I know this is the Network Plus study group, but we talk about whatever we would like in the after show. So since you folks brought that up, I thought I would give you my perspective. Now that I'm coming up on kind of the end of writing the content and seeing what people are doing with it and seeing what CompTIA is saying about it, they're right. It's big, and they should be proud of it, but it's just a lot. I think from the perspective of somebody who has to take it, that's the thing that probably is the most challenging to be able to get through that. I don't know that Network Plus will change that much when the new version comes out, but I've been surprised before. So if we're talking about Network Plus coming out in September of 2021, you're probably going to see new exam objectives in the summer, the end of the summer maybe. So we'll see in the July timeframe what that turns out to be. And when that happens, we'll do a study group. The next study group, I usually break those things down. But you got so much time before that happens. If you're studying for your Network Plus right now, just keep studying for the current version. It's always better to have this certification in your pocket than to be somehow waiting on a new one that's going to be somewhere in the future anyway. What the certification in your pocket is something you can use right now. You can send a resume. You can talk to an employer. You can use the knowledge in your current role. Waiting gives you none of that. There's no leverage at all. So that's why I tell people never, never, never wait to get certified. Get certified now. Go, go, go. Then at least you can use that knowledge. It does something for you in your pocket. You may not even realize it. There may be a job opening that shows up next week that had you got that certification, you would be qualified for. But you don't know because it hasn't happened yet. So those are the things you have to prep. You have to be ready for when those things happen. And that's why I mentioned that, to have those things there. So if this is a good question. For those of you in the chat room, the question is, if you have the knowledge of the A+, is it necessary to take the certification? This particular case, this person wants to go take their Network Plus. So is it even necessary to take the certification? There are people that come to my website that go through the A+ content, the Network Plus content, and the Security Plus content, but never take the certifications. That's not their goal. That's not their objective. They wanted to learn more about the topics that are on these certification exams. Earning the certification would not necessarily give them any advantage from a career perspective, but knowing the content might. So there is that line you do have to draw. Are you using the industry certification as something that will get you a job, get you a better job, get you a higher salary? In some cases, it is. It's a credential you can put down that employers are really looking for. But if you're going to jobs and the employers don't care if you have it or not, what difference does it make? As long as you have the knowledge, you're good to go. And this is the part of certifications we sometimes miss, is that going through and learning all of the information you need to know to pass the exam is valuable in itself. If you go through the entire process of learning A+, now you have all of this hardware and operating system knowledge that you may not have had prior to learning all of that. That's knowledge you can take throughout your career. The things that we're doing in Windows 10, it's the same troubleshooting steps we did in Windows 7, same troubleshooting steps we did in Windows XP and before. So you can apply those also to Windows Server in some ways. So there's knowledge you'll be able to build on. Does it teach you everything? Of course not. Nothing teaches you everything, but it gives you a foundational spot. It gives you a place, a jumping off point, so that you at least know enough now to know where to go to the next step. And that's really the important part of certifications. And we sometimes forget that once you're done and you get the cert or don't get the cert, you've got the knowledge. And there was a time when I was learning and I got my MCSE back when Microsoft had a Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer certification. And I got my MCSE, and as soon as I got it, I went into meetings with people where we were talking about Microsoft technologies, and I was immediately able to use that knowledge and apply it back to the things that I did day to day. It was a set of skills that, had I not gone through those classes and learned that content and done the hands-on, I would not have the perspective. And it was that knowledge of Microsoft that really I was able to use for so many years. Even it was back in, I want to say it was the NT 4.0 days that I got that MCSE. That gives you a little bit of dating for me, but that's kind of how the industry works. But the fundamentals of Windows haven't changed that much. Some things have changed dramatically, but you're able to adjust to those because you have the foundation to be able to do it. So absolutely, if you don't need the A+ certification, it doesn't help you from your career perspective. Employers aren't looking for it. It doesn't give you any advantage in your career in that regard, then no, you don't have to get the cert. But you know the content, and you will be able to apply some of that towards Network Plus. There's that big section in A+ on networking. A lot of that shows up also in Network Plus, and you can build on that. So always good to have that there. I think, of course, as you go through and think about your career, there may be times when you might want to have it, but you can always go back and get it. You know, if you have the foundational knowledge, you may have to study it a little bit more up before you go take the exams. But the exams aren't inexpensive. These are costly exams. They aren't cheap. So I get why you might not want to take it if it doesn't give you any immediate return on that investment. It's a business decision at that point. It's a career decision. You just have to figure out the best way to do it. Yeah, back to get the MCSE, I had to pass 6 certification exams to get that. There was the option to pass, it was 6 or 7 at the time to earn that MCSE. So that was one of those where I had to go through 6 separate certification, learn it, take the cert exam, go to the next one, take the cert exam, go to the next one. It was like a year to get through that of constant study and constant take an exam and pass it. I still have those certification sheets around here somewhere. I have those. So I earned them. I'm going to keep them. They're worth nothing. They are not very useful to show up and tell someone you have the MCSE for NT 4.0. But I worked hard for that. And I guess it worked out. I guess it's okay. You know, that's one of those things. Is it expired? It's super expired. It's I don't know that it has an expiration. Microsoft doesn't have expiration dates for their exams because they are based on products. So at least I don't think they do. They changed that. I don't think they've changed that. So when you get one for a product, when the product goes away, it effectively retires itself. I don't know if they've shifted any of these for the cloud, if they're now, and for Windows 10, if they're now expired. Maybe they have. Somebody was talking about that in my chat room on my website a couple days ago. So I need to look at that. Microsoft changed around their certification program back in the beginning of the year, which, by the way, if you're going to make changes, you know, do it just before the big pandemic. And they had to kind of roll things back, and they made a mess of the whole thing. I think it's kind of settled down now. Now I need to go back in there and kind of see what they were doing, because some of the ones that they created really do interest me. I'm not sure that I agree with the direction they took to kind of get rid of learning about server and Windows 10 and kind of jump more into learning in the cloud. I don't know that that was the best idea, but some of the cloud-based certifications they have, I find fascinating. So I really want to get into that and learn more about what they're doing. I think that's probably a good idea just to have in my brain anyway. And I don't disagree in the chat room. That's why you love Linux. I mentioned this also for the people taking anything in IT, not A+ or anything else, but the more you know about Windows, Linux, and Mac OS, the better a technologist you're going to be. All three of those are valuable skills. One is not more valuable than the other. We can, of course, fight over it. We'll do rock, paper, scissors over it. We can figure out which one is best and which one isn't. Having arguments about what operating system is best, do we even do that anymore? We can save that for our game consoles, can't we? I think we've all pretty much agreed they all have value when used in the right way. So make sure that you are familiar with all those. Get as much knowledge as you can with Microsoft operating systems. Get as much knowledge as you can with Linux operating systems. Get as much knowledge as you can with Mac OS. I'll tell you why. Because if you are on my website right now looking at this and doing things here, then you are looking at a Linux server. And I manage and maintain that Linux device. If you are watching the stream, you're watching it from a Windows 10 device. The more I know and manage about Windows 10, the better off this is going to go. And the main machine that you see all of this sent, from the slides that are here to the screens that are in front of me, are all on Mac OS. And all of the video editing I do is on Mac OS, not because it's better or worse for video editing, but because that's what I'm using as my primary machine. So I use all of those operating systems. They are all very, very important to me. They all have a place and a focus and an expertise, and I hope I'm using them in the right way for that. I think that I am. But I need to be as knowledgeable in all of those as I can, and employers love it because all of your employers have all three of these somewhere. Keep going through all those and getting them done. And you're right, Xbox is the best. Would you believe I missed the pre-sale for this? Did not get the new Xbox. What was I thinking? I was something going on in my world when that happened, when you had to sign up and get the pre-sale. I did not do it. Now I'm probably going to miss the window before the holidays. So if anybody knows anybody who's a retailer that's got the new Xboxes yet, if you're watching this on a replay, just don't send me the email. It's too late. But I missed the window. So I got to work on that. Maybe it's for the best. As I mentioned, I'm working on Security Plus right now. And I'm working what I call half days, 8 in the morning until 8 at night. There's not a lot of time for Xbox anyway. So that's the Xbox Series X having disk drive issues already. What? The SSDs are having problems. Did I get a new Mac? I did not. The Mac that is in front of me is it 3 years old at this point? Let's do an about this Mac, and we can all look and see what I am running right now on my screen. We'll bring it up. There we go. Let me put me on the screen. What good is, that's a great shot. Let's put me on here. There we go. although it's not going to make any difference. We're going to zoom up on it anyway. This is 2017 iMac Pro. So it is kind of old. It's got 3 years under it at this point. I know the new iMac Pros are out. I know. I just, I can't bring myself to buy one yet. They're relatively expensive. I think if I spec'd out, I saw this in the previous study group we did. The current iMac Pro that I have here is, if I spec it out in a similar way, it's like $10,000. It's a ridiculous amount of money, but it still runs great. It's 2.3 gigahertz, 18 core, because I got a high end when I got it, 128 gig of memory. It's DDR4, but you know, it's where it is. Vegas 64. Yeah, I know, but it works for 4K, and it will edit 4K without dropping a frame. And it's like a champ. This has been running solid for 3 years. Let me knock on things as much as I can here. But this has been working so well. Now, a newer one would render faster. I get it. Right now, it's rendering 4K at about a 1-to-1, which means if it's a 10-minute video, it takes about 10 minutes to render that. I'm okay with that. Most of my videos are 10 to 15 minutes. That's fine. Now, if I was rendering these constantly, there's 2-hour events and it's a big deal, probably would have to upgrade. But these are okay. I did not see the Xbox smoking. I don't know that that's entirely true. You know how many thousands, hundreds of thousands of these Xboxes went out? Yet one of them's going to have a problem, at least. I don't. Is it going to be a systemic issue? Probably not. It's stock equipment in these things. It's not something that's they're making out of the thin air. In fact, is the motherboard back here? Is that the Xbox motherboard? No, that's an old NLX motherboard. My Xbox motherboard's over here. You can't see it, but I've got an original Xbox motherboard over there somewhere. That's there. But I think, of course, there's going to be some that are broken to be able to do that. Now, you can't afford a Mac. How can you learn about it? There are some good prices. Macs don't lose a lot of their value, though. But you can usually get some good prices at a secondhand store or on eBay. eBay's a horrible place to buy hardware, I realize. Another thing you might want to look at if you are wanting to do Mac, there are cloud-based Macs that you can buy time on. The cloud-based Macs, I have not used any of them, but Mac in Cloud, Mac Stadium, xCloud. So there are some Mac-based services that you can buy time on a cloud-based Mac. So they're out there. They're available. What you may find, though, is that, well, from a command line perspective, it's pretty much Linux because it is Unix under the surface of a Mac. It's BSD under the surface, their own flavor now. The other part about it is the user interface. Once you kind of get that, it's sort of Windows. You know, there's not much. The challenging thing is if you're trying to manage it, that's another thing. Now, what about Mac and a virtual machine? The end user licensing agreement for Mac OS, I haven't looked at the latest one. I think it's the same, which means you cannot create or run a VM of Mac OS unless you are running it on Apple hardware, which sort of defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do, which is to get our hands on it. If you already have Apple hardware, you probably don't need to run Mac in a VM. So that's one of those situations. So that's the case. The end user licensing agreement does not allow you to run the Mac in a VM on hardware other than Apple's. So I don't recommend you doing that. So that's the thing. So I mentioned earlier about Azure having training materials and having the ability to create Azure stuff for free. It's on Microsoft Learn. I have not gotten into a ton of it, but on Microsoft Learn, they have tons of Azure training out here, and it's on Azure. And there's tons of, I think there's another web page that Microsoft has on how you can use Azure for free. So they give you the limitations of how much you can do for free. That's another good place to go. There's lots, but they're not unique in that case. You can do the same thing on Amazon, you know, AWS and other Amazon services. There's plenty of free tiers of that one as well. So you can build out a virtual machine. You can build out a VPN. You can build out all of these. You can build out a virtual desktop configuration, and it doesn't cost you anything until you get over a certain amount of use. You just have to be very careful that you don't go over that amount of use, because you will get billed for that. You will have to pay for it. So don't do that. I did that. Don't do that, because you will have to pay for it. Fortunately, I didn't have to pay very much. I'm like, why'd they bill me $5 at the end of the month? Oh, that's right. I left my VDI, my virtual desktop infrastructure up. The machine was powered off, but I had to pay for the storage of it being powered off. I had to pay $5 for a computer I didn't use. So that's my life, I guess. On Security Plus, this is kind of a question for any of the CompTIA exams. How many questions are you allowed to fail on Security Plus or Network Plus or A Plus? We don't know. When you take the exam, the way we believe it works is that every question is worth a different number of points. So missing one question may be the same as missing two others, or 1.5, because they're weighted differently. So that's one of those cases where we just don't know how many. We know that they are all not given the same amount of points. That we've figured out, but there's no way to know how many points it is. We don't know if the performance-based questions are worth more or less than multiple choice-based questions. We don't know if does two multiple choice-based questions, is that the same as a performance-based, or is it 3-to-1? So does it make more sense if the performance-based question takes more time and you can get through 3 multiple choice questions in the same amount of time? Does it make sense to do the multiple choice? We don't know. If we knew that, we could make some decisions about that, but we don't. There are people that insist that you should take the performance-based questions, get through them, and then go to multiple choice because they're more important. There are other people that insist you could fail all of the performance-based, just leave them all blank, go through all the multiple choice, and you'll do fine on the exam. The reality is probably somewhere in between. So we don't know. That's one of those challenges to get into. And in the chat room, you're right. The SY0401 Security Plus, half of that was replaced on the 501. On the 501, half of that is replaced on the 601, and it's 30% bigger. And the 501 was also bigger on the 401. Why do they keep doing this? By the time they get to the 701, it will be 2 exams that we want. I don't know. They keep expanding it out like there's never an end of it. And on the exam, people also are saying there's questions on the exam that aren't graded. We also believe that to sometimes be the case as well. And again, you don't know what questions those are. They don't tell you. So it's a different set of strategies. Some people say that you should skip the performance-based questions, go right to the multiple choice, because with CompTIA exams, you can jump to any question at any time. It's very different. Like a Cisco exam, when you hit submit on a question, you can't go back. You have to keep going forward, one exam question at a time on the Cisco. CompTIA doesn't do this. You can go jump around anytime you want to any question you want. So some people say you should skip the performance-based questions. I'm one of those people. You go through all of the multiple choice, watch your clock, make sure you got enough time, go through all the multiple choice-based questions. I think they help your brain remember things so that you can come back to the performance-based questions and then go through them. At the very least, you should look at them. What's that one about? Okay. What's that one about? Okay. Go through all of them, at least know what they're about, so that as you go through the other multiple choice, you're like, there might be a question on that up earlier. The other thing people do is they say, go through the performance-based questions, get them out of the way, so that you can then manage the rest of the time on the multiple choice. I don't know if that makes sense to me. That's not my style, but it worked for them. So find the way that works for you as well. That might help you. In the chat room, what about those Apple ARM chips? How about those? I watched their presentation earlier in the week. Was that yesterday? I think it was. On their new chips. They're making a big push into the silicon. It's an interesting business challenge they have. You know, they used to use the PowerPC was the chips they were using originally. Then they moved to Intel. That was a not insignificant move. It was a challenge getting code, getting applications to run properly, getting things to work right. But I think they remember that. I think they really have taken a few opinions about the way that process went, because now they're going to dump Intel at the side of the road and go to their own chips. I think there's some significant advantages to that that we're already seeing in this first generation. Things that you could not do in the Intel platform that Intel has decided they didn't want to pursue. Apple has a different idea what they want to do with their CPUs and their technologies, so they're moving a different direction than anybody else is doing. Well, that gives them some options for their software and what they want to do in their operating system. That would be great. If I could not rely on, because as you've seen, for somebody like me that wants a high-end Macs have been very difficult to get your hands on. It is a long time between high-end Macs. And it's not because Apple doesn't want to come out with new high-end Apple hardware. They are at the limitations of what the CPU companies are making available, in this case, Intel. And there just hasn't been the right relationship happening there. If they're in charge of their own CPU, changes everything with the high-end product that they would be able to offer, and low-end product, just the entire product line. They now have much more flexibility with what they're able to offer. That would be fantastic. It seems like their conversion process is going well, but obviously we don't have the hardware yet. There's certain applications I rely on that I have to have. There's other applications I use that are incredibly important to me, and then other applications that I could do with or without. But obviously I need browsers, but I use, obviously, a lot of the things I use for video editing, those are going to work fine on the Mac. But I have other things I use. I use a scripting automation software on my Mac called Keyboard Maestro, which is amazing. It is phenomenal for automation. And I use it to do my study group emails that get sent to you. So those emails are done automatically. I look at it. I verify that you're sending me the right information. I just click a keystroke. It grabs it. It restructures it. It sticks it in an email format. It puts it in there. It makes sure the digital signature is right. I look at it and go, yep, that looks good. And I click send. So it takes me a second to do this. Before, I'd have to go to a text file, find the page that had the code. Yep, the code is right. Let me copy it. Let me paste it. I got to change the name now. Let me put your name in that you gave me. Put the name in there. Okay, that's done. Click go. And it was finished. So it took me a minute to do. Now it takes me a second. So I can go through these very, very fast. That software has to work. So I can't just move over to the new Apple hardware if that software has not been changed already. So those types of things become incredibly important to me. So we'll see. It's one of those where hopefully I can kind of wait until the next gen, wait for all the software to kind of get written and moved over, and then I'll be over there. Other people that kind of have a one focused, that's what they do on their Macs. They edit video. That's all they do. Yeah, they can go right out of the gate right now and they're good to go. Mine's more of an all-purpose machine, so I'm not sure if it's right for me to upgrade right now. But those new processors look really good. They look really, really good. When you have Mac people saying, wow, this is like butter. This is like amazing what it's doing from a user experience perspective. That's remarkable because the Mac's already really good on the user experience side. For somebody to say, oh, wow, they really changes the way you use the operating system, that's pretty good. Now, for those that haven't used a Mac before, you have no idea what I'm talking about. The difference in usability between a Windows operating system and a Mac operating system, most people look at and go, they do the same thing. I do video editing here, it does video editing there. I do email here, it does email there. I do browsing here, it does browsing there. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. You're absolutely right. But the Mac OS environment is different in how it interacts with you. It's a whole ecosystem. And if you've got that ecosystem built into your watch, you've got it built into your phone, and it kind of all works together, it's really a different world in how it operates. And that's really what they're selling. That's why it's a premium product that costs a little more. I would like to think I'm getting a little more out of it because of that. We can all fight about that one too. I look forward to your cards and letters. Well, where do you get the objectives for the SY0601? You get them from the CompTIA website. There's a link to that. You go to professormesser.com/objectives. There's a link there that will take you over to the CompTIA website, and you can download the objectives for the SY0601. They're all there waiting for you. You will be so surprised at what is in there because there's a lot of reading that you will need to do. At which point, make sure when you're there that you also download the SY0501 objectives because that's the exam you should be taking. You can get them both at the same time. Make sure that you do to be able to have them there. I think they're the latest version of the 601 were just released this past month. So if you have an earlier version, make sure you've downloaded the latest. They changed some of the nomenclature and some of the topics were removed. Very few, just like 3 or 4. Not a big change, but make sure you get the latest ones. They did some spell checks and other thing in there. So make sure you always have the latest set of objectives to have it there. And they're probably not going to change again. Once they lock them down and the exam is out, they don't touch them. So whatever you have to learn today for the SY0601 is what you will be learning in 3 years for the SY0601. It's exactly the same content. They are not going to change it in that time frame. Once they did that once on the 700 series A+. So now we're talking, it's 9 years ago. They did that where they released the certification and then Windows 7 came out and they added Windows 7 a year later. It's a disaster. It was just a mess. It wasn't a disaster, but it was a mess to keep straight. They've decided they're not going to do that anymore. Thankfully, hopefully they will continue not to do that and we'll be fine. Well, that brings us to the end of another study group. Thank you for being here for the first hour where I do the Q&A. And thank you for being here in the second hour with the chat room and the phone calls. Well, we couldn't do it without you. This is a big part. It would be a very boring second hour were you not here. So thank you for doing that. If you'd like to watch us live, you can always come back to the website. ProfessorMesser.com/calendar tells you exactly when the next one will be. And if you got something out of this, please click that like button, subscribe to us as well. It really does go a long way to helping us, and we really do appreciate it. Thanks for being here. We will see you next time on the Network Plus Study Group. Thanks, everyone.